Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Next question. Romeo from Vietnam. Hi again, Romeo. Romeo says, hello, Alicia. Do native speakers say you aren't gonna blah 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 or you're not gonna blah blah blah? Which contracted form is used more? I think they're used equally. Like you can choose which you prefer. Me? I think I usually say you're not gonna. I probably use you are. I contract the you are. You're not gonna, or you're not gonna do something. I probably use you're not more often than you aren't gonna. Next question. Okay, next question is from Fem. Fem. What does you're too good to be true mean? Is it good or not? Maybe you've heard this in a famous song. You're too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you. In that case, it's a good meaning. A different way to say this expression is you are so good, you are so amazing that I can't believe you're real. So in other words, something must be wrong. There must be some problem with you. It's not possible for you to be real because you are so good. You are so great. So you're too good to be true. It's like, wow, I'm amazed by you. So it's a good expression. If, however, maybe in a more uncommon situation, someone said like, this guy's too good to be true. Like maybe reviewing a job application, for example. This girl, she's too good to be true. Like if it's said in that way, maybe there's something suspicious about that person. This doesn't seem right. There's just too much good information here. There must be some problem with this person. Depending on the intonation, it can portray either a very positive meaning or a very suspicious meaning. In most cases, however, it's a positive meaning. So if you heard this in a song, for example, it's probably a very positive, kind of romantically nuanced phrase. Thanks very much for that question, Fem. Nice one. Next question is from Wagner. Wagner? Have you written any operas? Why do American people pronounce English class 101 instead of 101 or 101? Oh, this relates to like university and college level courses actually. So there are 4 levels to universities or to colleges in the US. First year, second year, third year, and fourth year. So the classes for each of those are numbered. So first year classes begin with 1, second year classes with 2, third year classes with 3, fourth year classes with 4. So first year classes, like it tends to be like the basic classes, begin with a 1, and like the most basic of those classes is usually 101. So like English class 101, that's kind of making like a friendly introduction to English, in other words. So we say 101. We always use that sort of pattern when speaking. We don't say 101. We always use 101 or like 124 or like 367. I don't know what those classes are, but we always say each individual number. Nice question, though. Interesting. Question. Rabia Arshad. Rabia Arshad. I'm very sorry. What's the difference between can and may? I saw this on the Dining Like a Champ cheat sheet and noticed these words were used for requests. What's the difference? Can and may for requests in modern English, in modern American English, are used the same. If I use them in a statement, can refers to ability, may refers to permission. Please just be careful. Can and may are only used in the same way to make requests in modern American English. Next question is from Danny. Would you tell us about here you are, here you go, there you are, there you go, and here, there, we, you, it, they, we go. Oh gosh, okay. I'll talk about the ones that you introduced. What do they mean and how do you use them naturally? So let's talk first about here you are and here you go. So we use these when we present someone with something. So you give someone something. Here you are, here you go. Like you are at a restaurant, maybe your order arrives. Here you are, here you go. Something like in a service situation, you might hear this kind of from like a friendly staffish, like staff-related person, I suppose. Here you are, here you go. Or maybe from a teacher to a school child, maybe. Here you go. We use it to like present something, to present an object that maybe they're expecting to receive. Let's talk then about there you go and there you are. So we use there you go when someone is able to do a thing they've been practicing for a while. So for example, if a child is learning how to ride a bicycle and they've been struggling with it for some time, but then gradually they get better at it and they can do it. A parent might say, "Oh, there you go. You got it. You got it." It's like a support word, an go. The last one on your list, though, there you are. In American English, we use there you are in a situation where we're looking for someone. We've been looking for someone we're expecting to meet, and it's been difficult to find them. Maybe you visit a few different spots, but then at last you find this person, maybe like in a break room or someplace you might not expect them. But when you do find them and you say, oh, there you are, we say it with that sort of intonation. Oh, there you are. It sounds immediately to the listener like, oh, this person has been looking for me. Next question is from Taylor. Hi again, Taylor. Where are you from and where were you born the same? Great question. Where are you from? Where were you born? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Where were you born is only the place where you were physically brought into the world. Maybe your hometown, the place you identify as your hometown, is different from the place where you were born. Maybe you were born in Spain, but you grew up in the USA. Your family moved after that. So you could say, I was born in Spain, but I grew up in New York City. If someone asks you, where are you from? It might be a good idea to say, I was born in blah, 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 but I was raised in blah, 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 in a different place, if the two places are different. Next question is from LOJ. LOJ, log, LOJ, LOJ says, my question is about phrasal verbs. What is the meaning of knocked out? Like here, example sentence 1. Knocked me out of my possession. Or 2, knocked the wind out of me. I had a problem with the word possession. Knocked me out of my possession. I'm not quite sure. This could refer, though, to, in a very rare situation, we have this word possession, which refers to like this thing called demonic possession, where there's this idea that a bad spirit gets into the body and controls a person's behavior. We call that possession. So we could say like a priest knocked me out of my possession. To go back to your original question, though, the word knock out as a phrasal verb, to knock out means like it means forcefully or forcibly remove something. Because of some impact, an object is removed from its original location. So for example, a jogger could be coming at me and they run into me and they knock my phone out of my hands. So in that case, my phone is being removed because of the impact of the jogger. So to knock something out means like to remove from its original location from force. In your second example then, knocked the wind out of me. This is an expression we use which means like to lose our breath because of an impact. So if you get like punched or kicked maybe in maybe this area, you might feel the air in your lungs come out of your body. So we call that the wind in this situation. So like he knocked the wind out of me means he caused me to lose the air in my lungs. The impact was so strong in my body that the air came out of my lungs. So I like he knocked the wind. So the wind, in this case the air in my lungs in its original location, was removed from me because of this impact. You might also hear this expression in boxing, to knock out or to KO someone, means to cause them to lose consciousness in this case. So consciousness is the thing that's going away in this case. So to knock someone out in like a boxing match means they lose consciousness. In other words, a KO we sometimes say. The first example sentence is not actually so clear to me. So it's also possible there's an error in the original text. I don't know. Next question. Next question is from Hassan. Hassan says, how do we use gotta in the negative form? So we did a live stream about have to and got to and need to on the YouTube channel and on Facebook a while ago. Gotta is a contraction, a very casual contraction of got and to. It's not a real word. Gotta is just the sound that we make when we say got to very quickly. Like, I gotta go to school today, or I gotta finish my homework, or I gotta get to sleep, I'm so tired. In American English, we do not use gotta in the negative. Instead, we use have to or need to. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I don't need to go to work tomorrow. And I don't need to go to sleep right now. But American English does not use gotta in the negative form. First question is from the wrong spreadsheet. Okay, first question this week comes from Danny. Danny says, how do we say the TH sound naturally? Sometimes I can't stick my tongue out too much when speaking. or for example, when I say something in a long sentence quickly. A couple things to consider. One, there are two TH sounds. There's the TH sound like in think and this, where as Danny's talking about, your tongue kind of sticks out between your teeth. But it's not such a big motion actually. So it's not like you have to be really dramatic with how much you stick your tongue out, like th. It's a bit too much. Maybe when you practice, you can do that to kind of get used to how it feels. But when I say that sound and when native speakers make that TH sound, we're only sticking our tongue out a tiny bit, a really small bit between our teeth. So think, think. It's like the tip of the tongue only. So with practice, that sound will get easier. The other sound though with TH is something we hear in a word like the. So the tongue is actually like just touching the back of my teeth, or maybe like the back of my teeth and the top of my mouth a little bit. The way that the sound is produced is a little bit different. So when I say think and they're a little bit different sounds. So keep this in mind. If you're trying to say the, don't use the motion to pronounce the word think. If I'm saying the, with a really exaggerated TH sound like in think, it's going to slow me down. So think about that. Next question. Next question comes from Maxime. Hi, Maxime. Maxime says, how do you pronounce I shouldn't have done it, I couldn't have done it, and I wouldn't have done it? So here these are negative past perfect statements. So I'm using kind of exaggerated pronunciation here. I should not have becomes shouldn't have, but a native speaker, a native English speaker, an American English speaker will say shouldn't have. Shouldn't have done it, couldn't have done it, and wouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have, wouldn't have, and couldn't have that same v sound, but again, it makes it hard to say all of those sounds clearly in speech. If we're focusing a lot on saying those sounds clearly in speech, our speaking slows down. So we say shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't. Shouldn't have, couldn't have, and wouldn't have, I guess is sort of the in-between, like the medium kind of pronunciation there. But when speaking rapidly at very fast, like native level speed, we'll say shouldn't, couldn't, and wouldn't. So give those a try. Shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't. Shouldn't have, couldn't have, wouldn't have. Should not have, could not have, would not have. Shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't. Hope that helps. Next question. Next question is from Sadaham. I need to improve my spoken English and my vocabulary. How do I do that? I think there's a tool on the website where you can record your voice speaking English and compare it to a native speaker saying the same thing. So I think that's a feature on the website. So check that out. If you haven't been, it's at EnglishClass101.com. There should be a recording function there where you can record your voice and compare it to a native speaker and keep practicing that until your voice and your pronunciation matches the native speaker's pronunciation. So you'll see like little waveforms there even on the recording page. So you can try to match your voice to a native speaker. So of course, practicing with native speakers where possible, repeating. So creating your own speech is important too. Practicing with like recording tools, voice recording tools. When you record yourself, you suddenly hear so many problems in your speech. So recording yourself can be another good tool. But in terms of building your vocabulary, first I need to define a goal. What do I want to talk about? If I want to talk about food, I should look for materials in my target language talking about food, and I should study those. So think about what it is that you want to do and try to be specific. Try to narrow your goal down to, what are the words that I need to do, and try focusing there. And then maybe you can widen the focus to other interests here and there too. But start maybe with the things that are going to help you communicate the things that you really want to say. So always think about your goals. What do I want to learn how to say? Next question from Ricardo Villarreal. Oh, hey Ricardo, welcome back. Is it correct to learn several languages at the same time? Ooh. Is it correct? I can't answer that, whether it's correct or not. So I've heard that if you want to try, for whatever your reason is, if you want to try to study more than one language at the same time, it's better to try to choose languages that are quite different so that there's less chance of you making mistakes or getting confused in your studies. The other thing that I think I would say is if you're studying more than one language at the same time, your progress might be a bit slower than if you studied just one language. Yeah, is it correct? I don't know. I can't answer that. That's up to you to decide. Okay, next follow-up question now. Follow-up question to this question comes from Sunil. Sunil, hi. Sunil asks, can we use could for the future? So I'm guessing this is talking about future plans, in which case, yes, you can. When you're thinking about something you want to do or you're trying to decide what you might do, you can use could just to talk about the possibility of something. So we use could to say something is just possible. For example, I could go to the beach this weekend, or I could sleep in late tomorrow if I want to, or I could go and visit my parents next week. So these are all statements of just simple possibility. We're not saying I'm going to do that, or maybe I'll do that. We're only saying that it is possible. So that's what we use could for. For talking about future plans, yes, we can use could for simple possibility.
First question this week comes from Nurayuidaha. I hope I said that right. Hi, Nurayuidaha. Nurayuidaha says, what's the difference between home and house? Okay, a home is a place where you live. A home can be an apartment building, it can be a tent, it can be a boat, it can be a trailer, it can be any place where you live. The place where you maybe come back to at the end of every day is the place that you call your home. A house, on the other hand, is a type of building. A house is not attached to anything else. A house is standing by itself. It's alone. It's one unit, usually for one family. So a house can be a home, but a home does not necessarily have to be a house. So this, for example, we cannot call a house. If we returned here, though, we could say, this is my home, or this is where I live, if you wanted to tell your friend about your building. But we would not say, this is my house. So when we want to talk about the place where we live, we can say, this is my home, but we only use house if it's specifically this type of building, if it's specifically a stand-alone building. There's one other use of the word house that's much less common unless you watch like really, really big epic stories. So for example, Game of Thrones has a really good example of this. House Stark, for example, or house plus last name refers to all the family members that have that last name, and that means all the family members living or dead. So that can mean the ancestors of that family. So in House Stark, for example, that means all of the family members in the Stark family. So alive, dead, whatever. Everybody. So this use of house is quite uncommon. As I said, it may be more commonly used in like fantasy stories. Game of Thrones is a great example of this, but we don't use this in everyday English today. So I hope that this helps your understanding of the differences between home and house. Thanks very much for the question.
Next question is another follow-up question. Follow-up question 2 from Bahar. Hi, Bahar. Bahar says, my question is about can and could when I want to use these when asking for something. How do I use can and could in the right situation? When you're making a request, can is going to sound more casual. Could is going to sound a little more polite. If you're visiting a friend's house, you can say, can I have something to drink? Or could I have something to drink? Could sounds more polite in that case. Can is probably a little more natural since they're your friend. If you are, however, at like someone's office, you're visiting a colleague, you might instead use could I have something to drink, or could I have a glass of water? That sounds a little more formal. If you're worried, just go with could. It sounds a little more polite. It's always correct. Then Bahar has a second question. Are would and might similar a little bit? And do both of them consist of possibility? Yes and no. Would is used to talk about potential situations. So we've talked about on this series before a pattern like if I were blah blah blah, I would. Like if I were a teacher, I would teach math. Or if I were rich, I would buy a house. So we use would to talk about unreal situations. In terms of like actual possibility, like future plans, we don't really use would in that way. Might, however, yes, we do use might to talk about possibility. So we use may and might to talk about something that has a fairly good chance, maybe like a 30 to 50% chance or so of happening. Like I may study later, or I might meet up with my friends for dinner tonight. The difference between may and might in American English in this usage in terms of talking about possibility is that might is more casual. Might is more often used in daily conversation. May sounds a bit formal. May sounds like a little bit too polite in most situations. Might is the one we use. So might refers to possibility. I might do something. He might do something. I might not do something as well. So in these situations, might is used for possibility, yes. So would is used more to talk about like potential in an unreal situation.
Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Zaina. Hi, Zaina. Zaina says, what is the difference between to fill in and to fill out? Okay, if you're talking about a form, like paperwork, an application, for example, then there's no difference between to fill in and to fill out. For example, please fill in this form and please fill out this form. They mean exactly the same thing. I would say perhaps in American English, fill in is less common than fill out. I think we use fill out more commonly in American English. Fill in might be a little more commonly used in British English. If, however, you are not talking about an application form or some other type of form, there are different meanings for fill in and fill out. So let's look at fill in first. To fill in for someone means to act as a substitute for someone. So if we can imagine we're at a rehearsal for a play, for example, you might say, I filled in for a dancer who was injured, or we need someone to fill in for the lead role in today's rehearsal. To fill in for someone means to act as a substitute for someone, to fill in. So this use is quite different from the meaning of writing something on a form. Now then, let's compare this, or let's contrast this rather, with fill out. To fill out means to get larger, usually as a person in terms of like your weight gain. So to fill out means your body or your face becomes larger. So this can be used in positive and in negative situations. For example, he was very sick last year, but he's recovering now and his face has filled out nicely. Or, you've filled out a lot since the last time I saw you. So again, this use of fill out is quite different from the meaning of fill out that's relating to application forms and other types of writing. So I hope that this answer helps you understand the differences between fill out and fill in. Thanks very much for sending this question.
Next question. Next question comes from Hong Mai Lin. Hong Mai Lin. I hope I pronounced it right. Sorry. Hong Mai Lin says, hi, how do you pronounce I'd like and I like, please? Thank you so much. Aha, this is a very common question. I'd like versus I like. Lots of people ask too, how do I listen for the difference between these two? I'd like and I like. I'm trying to pronounce it very clearly right now. I'd like and I like. Of course, there's a D sound, but when native speakers speak quickly, the D sound kind of disappears. I'd like to, I'd like to, I like to, I like to. My tongue touches the top of my mouth when I make the D sound. I'd like, I'd like. I think a better key to help you when you're listening for this sound, and I think that this is something native speakers unconsciously do, is we listen for the grammar in the entire sentence. We're not listening specifically for the I like or the I'd like there. We're listening to the grammar in the sentence. If, for example, it's at a restaurant and you say, I'd like a beer, please, that sentence makes sense, meaning I would like a beer, please. If we say, I like a beer, please, it's grammatically incorrect. I like beer is correct. I like beer, or I'd like a beer, I would like a beer. Those two sentences are correct, but they communicate different things. So listen for the grammar in the sentence. If you can listen to the grammar of the sentence overall, it can help you identify, did the speaker say I like or I'd like? This is a key point, I think.
Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Eddie. Hi, Eddie. Eddie says, hey, Alicia, I am French and I have been learning English for a while. When should I use do not? And when should I use don't? Thanks. Okay, basically, do not sounds more stiff and more formal than don't. In everyday speech, we use don't. Don't do this, don't do that. We use do not in more formal situations, like when we're giving a speech, for example, or perhaps when we're writing an academic paper. When you want to sound more formal, more polite, use do not. You'll also see do not used for official rules. For example, do not throw away trash here, or do not smoke. If you use do not in everyday conversation, it might sound kind of dramatic or maybe even mysterious. So for example, saying, do not be afraid, sounds kind of mysterious and dramatic. But if we say, don't be afraid, it sounds a little bit more friendly. So if you want to sound friendly and normal, please use the reduced form. If you want to sound dramatic, or if you need to sound more formal, please use do not. In most cases, this means you should choose don't. So I hope that this answer helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question.
Next question comes from Aya. Aya, hi Aya. How do I pronounce words like important, written, and mountain in an American accent? Important, written, and mountain all have these T sounds in the middle of the word, but native speakers don't pronounce the T sound clearly like I just did. Instead, we say important, written, mountain. This has like an apostrophe sound almost, so important, important, important. We drop the T sound, or it sounds very soft. So this is how these three words are pronounced. You might hear this in other words too. Thanks for the question though.
Next question comes from Sergio. Hi, Sergio. Sergio says, what's the difference between others and another's? Okay, first, let's take a quick moment to review a past episode of Ask Alicia where I talked about a very similar question. I think it's important for review. What's the difference between others, the others, and another? How do I use in the correct situation? Yeah, this is tough. Okay, let's begin by introducing a sample situation. Look at this picture. This is my sister. This is my other sister. The others are my parents. Now let's look at another picture. So here I introduced other with my other sister. In the second sentence here, I said, this is my sister. Third sentence was, this is my other sister. So I introduced sister in the first sentence. Other then refers to like the addition to something that's already known. So it's kind of like there's a very close relationship between those two sentences. This is my sister, this is my other sister. Shows that there's like an addition to the thing I just said. Then when I say the other refers to like the remaining known things. So if I'm looking at this picture and I know that there are 4 people in the picture and 2 people are the speaker's sisters, there are 2 people remaining, and I say the other people, that means the remaining people in the picture that I don't yet know. So the other people in the picture are my parents. Then I say, let's look at another picture. So another refers to an addition or something extra from outside the existing situation. Okay, so let's expand on this by looking at your question words, others and anothers. First of all, anothers is not a word, so don't practice that word, don't use that word, don't think about it. Another is okay, but anothers is not a word, so please don't worry about that. Let's focus on the word others. In this example that I just showed you, I used the expression the others or the other people. I said the other people in the picture are my parents or the others are my parents. So the others refers to people in a situation, remaining people in a situation that is known. If you want to use others, however, without that article, we need to create slightly different situations. For example, many people in the office want different snacks. Others are happy with the snacks we have now. So others in that sentence, in the second sentence, matches with many people, the subject of the first sentence. So the subject of the first sentence was many people in the office. This is one group of people in the office. Others then refers to people of a different group that are inside the same office. So many people in the office have opinion A. Others, in this case the plural because there's more than one person, have opinion B. So we're matching others, plural, to many people, which is referring to a number of people. So we can use others in this way to talk about a different group within like the same category, or in this case, the same building or the same office. So others can be used in this way. If you like, you could say other people in the office are happy with the snacks we have now. That's fine as well. But others is just a little bit shorter than other people, so it might be more efficient to use. So I hope that this helps your understanding of the differences between other, others, and another. Thanks very much for the question.
Next question. Next question comes from Kesavaraj. Sorry. What is the difference between tonight and this night? We use tonight in everyday conversation. What are you doing tonight? Where are you going tonight? Tonight I want to. Tonight I'm going to. Blah, blah, blah. We only use this night for like very formal speeches, for example. So tonight is the one that we use in everyday conversation.
Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Raymond. Hi, Raymond. Raymond says, when and how do we use with before or after a sentence? Okay, first let's talk about using with at the end of a sentence. So many people who are very strict about English grammar think that it's incorrect or it's not proper to end a sentence with the word with, which is a preposition. So let's look at an example. Who are you going to the beach with? This sentence is, in strict grammar rules, not considered correct by many people because it ends with the preposition with. The perfectly technically correct version of this sentence would be, with whom are you going to the beach? So although this sentence is grammatically correct, it actually sounds pretentious to some people. Pretentious means something that sounds more important or more valuable or grander than it actually is. So you might sound a little bit pretentious if you use this style of speaking, even though, yes, it is grammatically correct. In everyday speech, most people don't actually use this pattern, this with whom pattern. In everyday speech, we tend to use with a lot at the end of a sentence, as in the original example. So maybe you've noticed that my second example sentence here begins with. So with whom are you going to the beach? This is a sentence that you would use if you need to be extremely grammatically correct. But as I've said, in most cases, in at least modern American English, we don't use this style of speaking. This is an example of one way to use with in the starting position. We can use it along with what or with whom. For example, with what camera are you going to take photos? Or with whom are you going to dinner? So these sentences, again, although grammatically correct and beginning with, sound a bit unnatural in most cases in everyday American English. We actually sound a little more natural if we place that preposition at the end of the sentence, as in, what camera are you going to take photos with? Or who are you going to dinner with? So these are a couple of examples of how you can use with at the beginning and at the end of a sentence. I hope that this helps answer your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. First question this week comes from Sithi. Hi, Sithi. Sithi says, hi, Alicia. What is the difference between figure out and find out in terms of meaning and when to use, etc.? Okay, nice question. So first, let's look at figure out. To figure out means to solve. We use figure out when we have a challenging problem or we have like a complex puzzle, something that we need to do research on or we need to investigate into a little bit in order to find a solution. So to figure out means to solve. For example, I can't figure out what's wrong with my computer. I figured out why the house smelled so bad. Someone forgot to take out the garbage. We need to figure out why the software isn't working. So let's compare this to find out. To find out means to discover, especially when we're talking about a secret or a surprise or something else that we need to hide for some reason. You may also hear it used as a neutral way to say discover, but you can kind of tell depending on the context. So to find out means to discover, especially when you're talking about a secret. For example, my parents found out I left the house late last night. My boss found out one of our employees has been stealing. Hey, I found out about a great new restaurant in the neighborhood. Want to go? So we don't use these words interchangeably. In some, to figure something out means to solve something like a puzzle or you're finding the solution to a challenge. To To find out means to discover, and it often has a negative meaning, as when someone finds information that they were not meant to find. So I hope that this helps you understand the difference. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Kobe-chan. Hi, Kobe-chan. Kobe-chan says, hi, which of these two sentences is correct? Waiting in the lobby and waiting at the lobby. Okay, in a sentence like waiting in the lobby, as in I'm waiting in the lobby is correct. At the lobby, while used occasionally, is not used anywhere near as often as in the lobby. Please be careful though, if you're talking about a specific location inside the lobby, you will use at before the lobby, and then you'll follow that with the specific noun. So for example, I'm waiting at the lobby desk, or I'm waiting at the lobby bar, or I'm waiting at the lobby entrance. In those cases, we're talking about a specific location inside the lobby, so desk, bar, or entrance, and we use at for that. To talk about the general area of a lobby, however, we use in. I'm waiting in the lobby. So I hope that this helps answer your question. Thanks very much. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Jerry Song. Hi, Jerry. Jerry says, I usually watch TV shows to practice listening, but sometimes I can't clearly hear what the characters say, even though I know the words when I see them in the subtitles. So how do I improve this? That's a good question. Keep in mind that there are a few reasons why it might be difficult to understand a character, especially in unscripted TV like reality TV, where people aren't always speaking clearly. The words that people choose and the way that they make sentences may not be perfect. So please keep that in mind. People in unscripted TV shows often are not speaking clearly, or maybe they have a specific accent or a special way that they speak. They may also just be stopping and starting in the middle of sentences, and that can create some weird sounds too. So try to keep in mind that unscripted TV in particular might not sound as clear as scripted TV. It might not sound as clear as like this YouTube channel either. So those are a couple of things to keep in mind. Other things that you can consider though are reductions in speech and just speed of speech. So on this channel, we speak at a slower rate than native pace, and we also make an effort to speak very clearly to help people as they learn English. But native speakers don't do this usually. Something in general to consider, like even though characters may have accents that are difficult to understand, even for native speakers, something that you can consider for your English learning is to consider reductions in speech. So by that I mean the connections that we make between words and the ways that we make words shorter. For example, I'm going to go to the store to pick up something for dinner. That sentence said by a native speaker at native speed would probably sound something like, I'm going to go to the store to pick up something for dinner. So we've reduced a lot of those sounds together. These words like I'm going to go that are very commonly used together are often reduced to I'm going to go or I'm going to go to the. So think about these common reductions that you hear on TV and in movies and so on, and try to practice those in addition to considering how it looks on the page. So yes, it's I am going to in the subtitle, or I'm going to. But at native speed, it doesn't sound like that in many cases. I'm going to go to the is how I'm going to go to the, or I'm going to go to the sounds in native speech. So another point about reductions in speech is prepositional phrases. So those words like to and at and by, and even conjunctions like and but and so on, those words tend to get very, very short when we're speaking quickly because they're kind of giving us the structure of the sentence. So you can think of these sort of structure words as being sort of the background of the sentence, and the content words, like the nouns and the verbs, are kind of taking the focus. Those are sort of the highlights. So these are some other things that you can think of as you're practicing your listening and your speaking with reductions. So please keep these things in mind, and also keep in mind, as I said, people speak with different accents too. People from different areas of the US speak differently. People from different areas of the world speak different kinds of English too. So please keep in mind that in some cases it's actually difficult for native speakers as well, But another thing that maybe you can work on to kind of advance your listening and even your speaking is to consider reductions. So listening for those reductions and then considering how you can use those reductions in your speech as well to sound more natural. So that would be my suggestion for improving your listening and improving your speaking as you practice with these reductions in your own speech too. So I hope that that helps you. Thanks very much for the question. First question this week comes from Alexander. Hi, Alexander. Alexander says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between error and mistake? Are these words interchangeable? Okay, mistake sounds like something a human did. Error sounds like something a machine did. That's the basic difference here. They have the same meaning, like something made a mistake or something had an error. We use those two expressions to mean roughly the same thing, but the feeling is a little different. You'll also notice that the verbs I used with those expressions were different. When it's a human, we say, I made a mistake, or in present tense, to make a mistake. When we use error, we use the expression to have an error, as in, my computer had an error. So these are some small differences in how we use these as verbs. But in general, the difference is that mistake is applied more to humans and error is applied more to computers and machines and so on. You may also hear in certain situations where a person made a big mistake at like a company and it had a really, really bad effect. You might hear the company maybe write an official statement like, we deeply apologize for the error, something like that, which kind of removes the human feeling from the situation. So I can't say whether that's good or not to do, but you may sometimes hear companies do that sort of thing in official statements where they need to make an apology. So in sum, they have the same meaning, but just mistake is for humans, error is for machines. I hope that this helps you. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Junaid Raza. Junaid Raza. Hello, Junaid. Junaid says, hello, Alicia. Most people are confused about the difference between motivation and inspiration. I know there are definitions available in dictionaries, but can you differentiate these two words in detail? Okay, sure. So inspiration is something that gives us an idea. So we use inspiration to create something new. Inspiration is something that comes naturally. It comes from within us. So we have an experience, we see something or touch something, we hear something, we smell something, taste something, whatever. We have some kind of experience and it gives us an idea. So it comes from like inside us. This idea comes from inside us based on this experience that we had. So for example, my mother's stories were my inspiration for this book. Or my childhood by the seashore was my inspiration for this dish. So these are the things that gave the speaker an idea to create something else. In the first example there, the speaker's stories were the inspiration for this book. So that means the speaker's mother's stories were the thing that gave the speaker the idea. In the second example sentence, we can imagine it's about a chef. So the chef's inspiration was a childhood by the seaside. So that gave the chef the inspiration to create that dish. So it's something that happens and there's a natural response in a person that makes them think, I'm going to create something. In contrast then, motivation is something that comes from outside us that gives us a push or that helps us to continue doing something. And motivation is usually for something that we maybe don't really want to do. So like on this channel, we talk a lot about finding motivation to study. So maybe studying is not something that many people want to do, but we can recognize the benefits of that. So we need to find different motivations for our studies. So some examples. My mother's encouragement provided the motivation I needed to finish writing my book. My motivation to create this dish was to share my childhood with the people who eat at my restaurant. So in these sentences that are kind of slightly changed from the first pair of sentences I introduced, We're talking about like the outside reason to do something. So inspiration refers to something that kind of comes naturally from within you. Motivation is more external. It's something that's pushing you or causing you to move forward or to start something, to continue something. And it's often for something we might not otherwise have done if this outside force had not been there. I would also say that personally, I think I probably use the verb forms more than the noun forms here. So that means I would use something like, this music really inspired me, and I hope to create my own music one day. Or my promotion really motivated me to work harder. So personally, I think I tend to use these as verbs a little more often than as nouns. But this is the difference in terms of meaning between the two. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Eliane. Hello, Eliane. Eliane says, should I say, have you received my message? Or did you receive my message? I think you may hear both. But in American English, we would probably use, did you receive my message? Did you receive my message? It's a simple question, a simple yes or no question about a one-time action that happened in the past. So, did you receive my message? You may hear, have you received my message? But I feel that that's probably less common than did you receive my message? It's just a simple yes or no question. So I would probably use, did you receive my message? Or to make it even more natural, I would probably say, did you get my message? Receive sounds a little bit more polite. In most cases, I would say, did you get my message? Did you get my message? Or if it's a text message, I would say, did you see my message? Did you see my message? Cases where I might use the have pattern are in like correspondence sharing situations. Like if a colleague is sending a group of people some information and I want to ask if they have seen the information, have checked everything, I might say, have you seen his message or have you seen her message? That's a situation where I might use the have pattern as opposed to the did pattern. There's a bit of flexibility there, so it kind of depends a little bit on the situation. But if you just want to quickly confirm, if you just want to quickly check, I would suggest using the simple past form. Did you see my message? That sounds very natural. So I hope that this helps answer your question. Inserted into the chamber of a revolver, and then the player spins the chamber and closes the chamber, and we don't know where the bullet is. Then the player points the gun at their own head or at someone else's head and pulls the trigger. So this is a very dangerous and very risky game. So this is, of course, not a game that I recommend in any way, but this is the origin of this idiom. Today, this idiom means to do something very dangerous or to do something very risky. So it has a very dark origin, so we tend to use it to mean something very dark. For example, he's playing Russian roulette with his career by skipping work all the time. So in this example sentence, the item that is kind of in danger is his career. So playing Russian roulette with his career. So his career is the thing that is in danger. We know that because it's connected to Russian roulette. So to play Russian roulette with this thing in danger. And the action, the risky behavior, is skipping work all the time. So he's playing Russian roulette with his career by skipping work all the time. That would mean, in a non-idiomatic expression, he's in danger of losing his job at any moment because he skips work all the time. One more example. They're playing Russian roulette with their savings by making this awful investment. So again here, after Russian roulette, we see with their savings. So here savings refers to like a savings account or money in someone's savings. So that's the thing in danger. That is the item of danger here. And then the risky behavior is by making an awful investment or by making this awful investment. So the they in this situation is making this terrible investment, this risky investment, and putting their savings at risk. So to play Russian roulette means to do something very risky and very dangerous, and it has a very dark and negative feel about it. So I hope that this helps you understand this idiom. Thanks for the question. Thanks very much. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Mohammed JT. Hello, Mohammed. Mohammed says, what is the difference between resign and resign? Also, compliment and complement. Great. So spelling is very important for this one, especially for the second question. Compliment, the first one, is spelled with an I, and complement, the second one, is spelled with an E. Let's talk about the difference between resign and resign first. So to resign means to quit, as in to quit a job or to quit an official position. To re-sign something, the hyphen is important here. To re-sign something means to sign something again. So the prefix re, R-E, means to do something again or just again. So we see this as in redo or like reheat for when we're using a microwave or when we're using a computer. So to re-sign means to sign something again. Some examples. He resigned as manager. The CEO resigned yesterday. Can you please re-sign your contract? There was a mistake in the previous version. We need to re-sign our paperwork. There were some changes. So I mentioned this hyphen in the second one here. So this hyphen between the RE and the sign helps prevent confusion between resign and re-sign. So you don't see this kind of hyphenation in the other words that I mentioned, like redo, for example, because there's not another word to confuse it with. But in this case, resign and re-sign look very similar, so we use that hyphenated version to mean re-sign, to sign something again. Let's continue on to complement and complement, which sound extremely similar in speech. Complement with an I can be used as a noun and a verb, and it means to say something nice. So, for example, your shirt looks nice is a compliment as a noun. To use it as a verb, I could say, my coworker complimented my shirt. So to compliment with an I is to say something nice. Compliment with an E, however, means to improve something or to enhance something. So it's something that goes well with something else or something that completes something else. For example, maple syrup is an excellent complement to pancakes. So that's used as a noun there. Or to use it as a verb, I think that maple syrup complements pancakes wonderfully. So we can use that as a noun or a verb, but please keep in mind the spelling difference between these words. Say something nice, I. To enhance or improve or complete something, E. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between these words. Thanks very much for the question. First question this week comes from Ahmad Junaidi. Hi, Ahmad. Ahmad says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between afraid and scared? I'm a little confused. Thank you. Okay, sure. If you are talking about fear, afraid and scared mean the same thing when you're using them as adjectives. So I'm afraid and I'm scared mean the same thing. We're talking about our emotions. We're talking about fear. In different situations, however, these words can be used in different ways. Let's talk about scare first. Scare can be used as a verb. To scare someone or to scare something means to cause someone to feel fear. For example, you scared me, or you scared the cat. So that means you caused fear in someone else. Past tense, it's scared as used in these examples. We cannot use afraid in this way. Afraid, however, can be used in a way that scared cannot. Afraid can be used in very formal situations, like business situations, as an apology. For example, I'm afraid I don't have time to meet with you today. Or, I'm afraid we don't have that item right now. So this afraid doesn't mean I'm scared. It means I'm very sorry, but. So I'm very sorry, but we don't have that item in stock right now. Or I'm very sorry, but I don't have time to meet with you. So I'm afraid is like a short, polite way to say that. So these are the differences between afraid and scared. I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ose Etienne. I hope I said that right. Hi, Ose. Ose says, hi, Alicia. When do I definitely know that I am at the advanced level? Well, I would suggest you first consider what advanced means to you. So to me, at an advanced level, I think a person should be able to give a business presentation or to be able to write a research paper or to be able to participate in a business meeting as a key person. So those are things that I think require an advanced level of linguistic capability to do. So you should ask yourself, can I do those things? So once you can determine the things that you think are advanced skills, think about, can I do those things in English? Can I do those things in my target language? If the answer is yes, cool, then you're advanced in terms of your judgment for what is advanced. If your answer is no, then you're not advanced. So I would suggest if you're having a little trouble determining your level, maybe think about the things that you would like to be able to do and ask yourself, can I do those things? And if the answer is no, then focus your studies on those things that you answered no to. If the answer is yes, cool, you can do those things, you can study something else. So maybe begin by thinking about the kinds of things that you consider advanced. I don't necessarily think knowing like 3,000 vocabulary words equals advanced. Like maybe you know lots of vocabulary words, which is great, but that's different from like communication skills or like the ability to put all of your ideas together in a research paper. So think about those sorts of advanced level things and ask yourself, can I do this or not? Hopefully asking yourself these questions of can I do this or not will help you to be able to at any time understand your level and the next thing that you need to be able to do. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Bruno Moria. Hello, Bruno. Bruno says, hi, Alicia. Can you tell me the difference between the words commitment and compromise, please? Okay, sure. Think about commitment as a promise or as an agreement. So a commitment is something you agree to with another person or with a group of people. As a verb, we say commit, to commit to something. So a commitment is something you agree upon with other people. Some examples. I made a commitment to do my best in this job. He's afraid of commitment. So the second example sentence is actually a common kind of complaint in romantic relationships. He's afraid of commitment, or she's afraid of commitment. You may hear it in situations other than romantic relationships, but it generally refers to someone who is afraid to enter into a kind of agreement, like a romantic agreement, to date or to be in a relationship with one person for a long time. So that's the nuance of the second example there. More generally, however, commitment usually refers to agreements, and they can be in business situations. Let's compare this now to compromise. So a compromise is a situation in which two sides have different proposals for something, and they each make changes to those proposals to arrive at this middle point. This middle point is called a compromise. So as a noun, this point is called a compromise. So side A and side B have different ideas. They change their ideas slightly, and find an agreement. So that agreeing point is the compromise point. As a verb, it's to compromise. So let's look at some example sentences with compromise. Our team members reached a compromise after discussing the project. My friends wanted to go bowling, but I wanted to play video games. So we compromised and went to an arcade. So in the second example sentence, I've used compromise as a verb in the past tense. We compromised. That means each side changed the plan just a little bit, and we found this middle solution. So in sum, commitment is an agreement. A compromise you can think of as like a type of agreement in which both sides change their ideas slightly. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to the next question for this week. Next question comes from Newman. Hello, Newman. Newman says, when talking to teachers, do we say teacher, miss, or mister? Oh yeah, good question. When you're talking with your instructors, at least in American English, we do not use teacher. We don't use that as a title for our teachers. If you are talking to a high school level instructor or below, in most cases we use Mr. for male teachers, we use Mrs. for married female teachers, and we use Miss or Ms. for unmarried female teachers or for female teachers that we don't know their marital status. So we don't know if she is married or not. That's usually the guideline we use for instructors at high school level or lower. If you are talking about a college, a university level instructor, sometimes they ask you to call them professor. If they have a PhD, they may prefer to be called doctor. Some people prefer to just be called Mr. or Ms., as we talked about earlier. Some people prefer you just use their first name. So it's actually very common for instructors to tell their students, please call me so-and-so. For example, in my lessons, I always want students to just call me Alicia because it's important to me to have a friendly and conversational feel. So I don't want my students to ever feel like I'm above them and they're below me somehow. That's not good. So it should be a friendly and open communication setting, so I prefer to use first names in my class. So that's my style, but each teacher has their own preferences, and usually they'll tell their students. If you're ever not sure, just go with Mr. or Ms. or Mrs. That's a pretty good guideline to follow. The only time we might use teacher is in like a very, very specific setting. It's like for a little kid who doesn't yet know the name of his or her teacher. They might just say teacher, teacher, like before they know the teacher's name. That's maybe the only situation I can think of where we use teacher as a title. So once you're old enough to learn people's names, it's best to use those. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Paterne. Hello, Paterne. Paterne says, hi, Alicia. What is the difference between supposed to and meant to? In terms of meaning, nothing. Supposed to and meant to have the same meaning. The only difference here is that meant to is used in British English and we don't use meant to in American English. For example, I'm supposed to go to a company event this weekend, and I'm meant to go to a company event this weekend. An American English speaker would use the first example sentence, I'm supposed to go to an event this weekend. A British English speaker would use the second sentence, I'm meant to go to a company event this weekend. For me, as an American English speaker, the second example sentence feels a bit unnatural to say. It's not something that we use in American English. But these two sentences communicate the same idea. So, if you are studying American English, great. I recommend using supposed to. If you're studying British English, great. Use meant to. It'll sound more natural. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. First question this week comes from Amr Ibrahim. Hi, Amr. Amr says, what is the difference between to and into? Great question. Yeah, generally we use into when we're talking about movement from one place inside of another place. To is used generally to talk about moving from point A to point B. So let's take a look at a few examples first. Let's jump into the pool. He walked into the store. We drove into the car wash. So in each of these example sentences, there's an object or a person moving inside of a location. So they're going from outside a location to inside of a location. We use into to show that the movement is happening and to show that that object or that person is being enclosed in something else. Let's compare this then to the same sentences with to instead of into. For example, let's jump to the pool. He walked to the store. We drove to the car wash. These sentences are all grammatically correct, but they don't show movement from something outside a place or outside of a situation inside something else. Actually, these sentences express the method by which we travel. So in the first sentence, let's jump to the pool, it means let's travel by jumping to the pool, like to the area next to the pool, for example. In the second example sentence, he walked to the store. It means he traveled to the store by walking. In the third example sentence, we drove to the car wash. It means the speakers used a car to travel to the car wash. So into actually means going inside something. To means like the method by which we travel to a location. So this is a key point of difference. You'll notice that just changing the preposition in these example sentences totally changes the meaning of the sentence. So please try to keep this in mind when you're choosing between into and to. Into is used to talk about moving inside of something else, and to is used to talk about like the actual part where you're moving to a location. So you're moving from point A to point B, not necessarily being enclosed in something. So this is a quick and general rough guide for the difference between these two. I hope that it helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Alexi K. Hi, Alexi. Alexi says, hi, Alicia. I can't understand the difference between be used to and get used to, especially in the past tense, because there's no continuous tense in Russian. Can you give me some advice and a couple of examples? Yeah, nice question. And it does depend a little bit on the sentence, especially for be used to. So just a reminder, we can use be used to or be used to. They have the same spelling in different ways. So we use be used to talk about something's purpose. For example, this printer is used to print models. And we also use used to or used to, depending on the sentence, to talk about things we are accustomed to doing. So as in the example, like I'm used to having a busy schedule. So please keep in mind that although the spellings are the same, the meanings are different depending on the sentence. I want to focus on the second type that I introduced here, this I'm used to having a busy schedule. So as a refresher, we use this kind of pattern when we want to talk about something we're accustomed to doing. I'm used to having a busy schedule in present tense. Past tense and future tense, however, we tend to use get used to, get used to. So for example, I got used to having a busy schedule, or I'll get used to having a busy schedule. We can also use it in present perfect tense, as in, I've gotten used to having a busy schedule. You could use it with the progressive tense too. I'm getting used to having a busy schedule. So what's the difference here with all of these sorts of things? We don't use that present tense, I am used to or I am not used to, unless we want to talk about the current situation, something that's true now or something that's not true now with the negative. For example, I'm used to making Q&A videos, or I'm not used to making Q&A videos. Those refer to something that is true now. We use get used to talk about things in the past or in the future, or which are currently in progress, as with the progressive form. I'm getting used to having a busy schedule. That means I'm in the process of being accustomed to having a busy schedule. Let's look a little bit more at the other forms I talked about. I got used to. I got used to having a busy schedule means I'm now accustomed to it. That part is finished. That's okay for me. In future tense, I will get used to having a busy schedule, or I'll get used to having a busy schedule. It means I'm not used to it now. I'm not accustomed now, but in the future, I will be. So it will become okay is what it means. In the perfect tense, I've gotten used to having a busy schedule means over time, I have gradually become accustomed to having a busy schedule. So in sum, when you want to talk about something that's true now, use the be used to structure or not used to structure, as I talked about before. If you want to talk about the past or about the future, or if you want to talk about something that started in the past and affects the present, you can use the get used to pattern. These sound a little bit more natural. So I hope that this helps you. It's maybe a lot of information, but it's a small point that I think will help you to sound a little more fluent with this pattern. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ruben. Hi again, Ruben. Ruben says, hi Alicia, is there any difference between loose and lose? I'm also confused with the words uninterested and disinterested. I think they have the same meaning, but I'm not sure. Yes, great question. There are key differences. Let's start by talking about loose and lose. Loose, with two O's, is the opposite of tight. So for example, my ring is loose, or wow, my pants are loose. So this means the opposite of tight. Something tight is like under pressure, or it's kind of, you can imagine it in like this shape, something that is tight. Something that is loose is not that. There's not so much pressure. It's easy to move. It's flexible. So loose is an adjective. Lose, on the other hand, is a verb, which means to no longer have ownership of something or to not win something, as in sports. So, for example, I lost my cat in the forest, or I think we're going to lose the basketball game today. So lose and loose may seem to have similar pronunciations and similar spellings, but they do have very different meanings. Also, different parts of speech. Lose is a verb and loose is an adjective. So keep these in mind and be careful of your spellings when using these words. Let's move on now to your second point about the difference between uninterested and disinterested. In many cases today, we use uninterested and disinterested to mean the same thing, which is having no interest in something. Like we just don't care, we don't have positive feelings or negative feelings, it's just there, we're very neutral. So many people use these two words to mean the same thing. However, disinterested can have a couple of other meanings. One of these is unbiased. So for example, politicians should make disinterested decisions. So that means politicians should make decisions without bias. So bias means having an opinion in one way or another about something. So a disinterested decision means an unbiased decision. We can use disinterested in this way. We can also use disinterested to mean no longer interested in something. So something you at one time were interested in, but you are no longer interested in, can be described as something you are now disinterested in. For example, I've become disinterested in my hobbies. Compare this then to a couple of example sentences that use uninterested. I told my friend about a concert I went to last week, but he was uninterested. We're so tired of having uninterested people at our events. So please keep in mind, as I said, many people use uninterested and disinterested to mean the same thing when the meaning is about not having any emotions or not having any attention focused on something. If, however, you want to talk about losing interest in something or about not being biased with regard to something, use disinterested. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. So thanks very much for the question. All right, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ivan. Hi, Ivan. Ivan says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between past simple and present perfect? For example, I lost my keys versus I've lost my keys. Or I bought a new car versus I've bought a new car. Thanks. Okay, yeah, nice question. Basically, when we use simple past tense, we're talking about an action that started and finished in the past. When we use simple past tense, it's like we're reporting information. So I lost my keys, or I bought a new car, or I sold my house. So it's like a fact, a quick fact, a simple report. It's done. When we want to communicate that some past action has an effect on the present, we can use the present perfect tense. So for example, I've lost my keys, or I've bought a new house, or I've sold my car. So what could the effect be there? In the first example, I've lost my keys. It's like at some point in the past, I don't know when, but at some point in the past, I lost my keys. Now I cannot find my keys. I still cannot find my keys. So this is the effect. The negative effect on me right now is like I can't use my car, or maybe I can't go home. Like I have to find my keys. So there's some effect from this past situation, losing your keys. In the other examples, which were like I've bought a house or I've sold my car, maybe the effects are like you have a lot of money, or you have to move to a new house, or now you have a new car that you can use to drive around. So when we use the present perfect tense here, we want to communicate that there's some kind of effect from this past action. When we're using simple past tense, it's like we're giving a quick report. Something is done, or we don't feel it's so important to talk about an effect. We just want to give this information. I lost my keys. So it's a little bit quicker, yes, and it's also just kind of like more direct. We don't think about the effects so much of that action. So that's a really quick guide to maybe why we would choose to use present perfect tense as opposed to simple past tense. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Sergey. Hi, Sergey. Sergey says, hi, Alicia. What is the difference between consist of and include? In what situations can I use these words? Yeah, you can think of consist of to mean is made of. When we use consist of, it's like a more formal way of saying something is made of something else. For example, this cake consists of flour, eggs, butter, and sugar. Or today's tour consists of a bus ride, lunch, and a guided walk around the Eiffel Tower. So in each of these cases, we're talking about all of the things that make up the subject of the sentence. So in these cases, the subjects were the cake and the tour for the day. So consists of means is made of. This thing is made of these various parts. Include, on the other hand, is used when we want to highlight something that's especially important. So we don't list everything inside something. It's like we're choosing maybe some category, or we're choosing some important feature of something. So we might say the ingredients for this cake include eggs and butter. So maybe we need to include that for allergy reasons. Or today's tour includes lunch. So maybe there's some key information we want to include. We want to share that there for some reason. So consists of is like made of. We talk about all of the things used to make something. Includes is used to highlight something or to share a feature of something. It does not necessarily mean that's everything. Like today's tour includes lunch doesn't mean the tour is only lunch. It means that inside today's tour there is also lunch. So this is the difference between consists of and includes. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Cecilia. Hi, Cecilia. Cecilia says, hi, Alicia. I found that sometimes there is a comma before and sometimes not. When should I add a comma before and? Thanks. Okay, yes, you should add a comma before and when you are joining two independent clauses. An independent clause is an idea or a phrase that can stand alone, so it doesn't need any extra information. It's a complete idea, a complete thought. Let's take a look at a few examples that show different types of clauses together. On Saturday, I'm going to the mountains, and on Sunday, I'm going to the beach. I told my mother I loved her cooking, and I told my father I love his music. I'm tired and hungry. I missed my train and forgot my wallet. So the first two example sentences here use a comma before and. This is because if we remove the comma and, the two ideas can be separated with a period, and there's no communication problem. The statements remain the same. On Saturday, I'm going to the mountains. On Sunday, I'm going to the beach. There's no error there. The second example sentence is similar. I told my mother I love her cooking. I told my dad I love his music. If we remove the comma and, the sentences are okay because they are called independent clauses. They're complete ideas. They don't need any more information. In the last two example sentences, though, we cannot remove and because the parts that it joins are not independent. So, I'm tired and hungry. If we remove and, it becomes I'm tired, hungry. In the last example sentence, I missed my train and forgot my wallet. I missed my train, forgot my wallet. That's not a grammatical sentence. So this is a good way to test whether your and is connecting independent ideas or not. Try removing it from the sentence. If the sentence remains grammatical, perhaps you have an independent clause and you can use the comma and there. This is one way to use a comma before an and. The other case where you may see a comma before an and is in the last item in a list. For example, I bought bread, fruit and milk. I saw my family, friends, and neighbors. So before the final item in each of these lists, there's an and there's a comma before the and. This is what's known as the serial comma or the Oxford comma. So some people choose to use this type of comma and some people choose not to. There are some good reasons, I feel, for using the Oxford comma, and I'm a person who believes that this is a good comma to use because it can help prevent confusion when you're reading. For example, I need to buy bread, fruits and vegetables, and a meat and cheese plate. There are many ands in that sentence. There are 3 ands in that sentence, and using commas to separate each individual item helps the reader understand what they should be looking for. What is one item here? A comma helps us identify those things. In another example, we might say, this weekend I'm excited to see my friends, Beyonce and Justin Timberlake. So a way to interpret this sentence without an Oxford comma is that Beyonce and Justin Timberlake are my friends, but they're not actually my friends. The Oxford comma helps prevent this kind of confusion. This weekend, I'm excited to see my friends, Beyonce, and Justin Timberlake. So it sounds like those are 3 different things that are not necessarily related. So the Oxford comma helps prevent this kind of confusion. For that reason, I'm a big fan of it. The cases where you might see the Oxford comma purposely not used are in journalism, really. So in newspapers, in magazines, for example, those publications and the style guides that they follow typically do not advocate or do not suggest the use of the Oxford comma. You will see the Oxford comma, however, in novels and in short stories and other things like that. So in those cases, you may see it used. This is another reason why you may sometimes see a comma before an and you may sometimes not see it. There are a couple of different reasons. So in sum, one reason is related to independent clauses and connecting those with a conjunction, and in this case, and a comma. The other is related perhaps to the use of the Oxford comma or the serial comma. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Next question comes from Pedro Henrique. Hi, Pedro. Pedro says, what does the expression have a blast mean? Oh, have a blast means to have fun. It means to enjoy yourself, to have a great time. It's a very casual, friendly phrase that you can use with your friends or with your family. We tend to use it for things we expect are going to be super, super exciting, like going to an amusement park or seeing a concert or traveling to another country. So you can use it in present tense, you can use it in past tense, whatever. If you go to a concert and you want to tell your friend about it, you can say, I had a blast, or the concert was a blast. If you want to wish your friend an exciting time, you can say, have a blast before they go. Or if you want to talk about a future plan, your friend is traveling somewhere, you can say, oh, wow, you're going to have a blast on your trip to Europe. So to have a blast means to have a great time. I hope that this helps you. Okay, let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Muhammad Arif. Hi, Muhammad. Muhammad says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between not related to and nothing to do with? Okay, if you're talking about anything other than people, so not people, objects, situations, then generally they mean the same thing. Nothing to do with has a little bit stronger emphasis. Nothing to do with sounds like absolutely zero, nothing. Whereas not related to sounds like a little bit less intense, not quite as strong. Some examples. This question has nothing to do with cooking. This question is not related to cooking. Today's meeting had nothing to do with marketing. Today's meeting was not related to marketing. So both of these example sentences, or both of these pairs of examples rather, communicate the same idea. It's just that nothing to do with maybe sounds a little more intense, like closer to zero. We really want to emphasize no connection at all. If, on the other hand, you're talking about people, not related to and nothing to do with are very different. For example, he is not related to me. He has nothing to do with me. In the first part, not related to, it refers to no family connection with me. He has no family connection with me. He is not related to me. In the second example, he has nothing to do with me. It means there is no connection at all. He's not my friend, he's not my coworker, he's not my family member, nothing. There's no connection there. In the sentence, he's not related to me, however, it just means there's no family connection. He could be my friend or my roommate or my coworker, something like that. But he's not related to me specifically means family member. So when you're talking about people, this is a key difference between these two expressions. Nothing to do with, no connection at all. Not related to just means no family connection. Again, when you're talking about things other than people, however, you can use them pretty much interchangeably. To me, nothing to do with sounds a little bit more like emphatic than not related to. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Let's get to your first question this week. First question comes from Muad Gitan again. Hi, Muad. Muad says, hi, Alicia. My question, what is the difference between perhaps and maybe? Perhaps sounds more formal. I use it now and then when I want to sound a little bit softer than usual. I think that you're contrasting this perhaps with maybe. So please be careful. Maybe with a space is different from maybe. We use maybe in conversations. For example, are you going to go to the party later? Maybe. Or is he coming to dinner? Maybe. Or the way that I start this series, maybe, like I might answer your questions. Maybe I'll answer your questions. I don't know. Perhaps sounds much more formal than that. Like if I started this video with, I'll answer your questions. Perhaps, like it doesn't sound quite the same. It sounds kind of formal, a bit softer too. But maybe reflects a possibility, like this may be the correct restaurant, or this may be the right textbook. So be careful in your speech and in your writing. Maybe and maybe have different purposes. But generally speaking, perhaps and maybe, the only difference there is that perhaps is more formal. Maybe is more casual. Hope that helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Gennady. Hello again, Gennady. Gennady says, hey Alicia, I ran across the word overlap with a meaning like meet. For instance, we never overlapped. Does that mean we never met before? Or maybe we never met accidentally? Is this correct or close? So this use of overlap means to be in the same situation or the same place as another person at the same time. So for example, if you're talking about where you work and you work at company A, and my friend Risa used to work at company A, I might ask you, oh, did you know my friend Risa, she worked at company A? And you could say, yeah, we overlapped a little bit. Or, no, we didn't overlap. So in the yes answer there, it means I worked at company A at the same time as Risa. So you can imagine overlapping being like your work overlapped. So she and I shared the same workspace for a period of time. If the answer is negative, no, we didn't overlap, it's like saying, no, we didn't share the same situation. We didn't share the same workplace. So overlap means being in the same place or the same situation. So this is not so common in everyday conversation. We use this as in the example in like work or business situations. You might also hear it used a lot in politics and in government situations as well to talk about, like, for example, when world leaders are in the same place or when their terms overlap, so when they're in office holding their government positions as the same time as other people. That's another situation you might hear it. You may hear it as well in like universities or in other like college, school related situations when you want to sound a bit more formal. But in general, we don't use this so much in everyday conversation. Instead, we might say, oh, I worked there at the same time as your person, or oh, I worked there at the same time as Risa, for example. So overlap means being in the same place or the same situation at the same time as someone or something else. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's get to your next question this week. Next question comes from Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah says, what's the difference between would have and would have been, and how do we use this in a sentence? These follow the same root pattern, would have plus a past participle verb. So the past participle form of be is been. When we use would have with a verb other than be, we're using a verb, so that means there's an action. Like, I would have come if I had had time, or I would have helped you, but I had to take care of a family emergency, for example. So we're following would have with another past participle verb form. When we're using would have been, we're talking about a potential state. So for example, like a job, or maybe it's like some other adjective phrase you use that reflects a person's condition. Like, she would have been fired if the project failed, for example. Or, we would have been dead if you hadn't saved us, something like that. I hope that that helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ruban. Hello again, Ruban. Ruban says, what is the difference between as and while? For example, while I was walking, I ate an apple. And as I was walking, I ate an apple. When do I use as and while? There's no difference, actually. You can use both as and while to talk about two actions that happen at the same time. For example, I ate potato chips while I watched TV. And I ate potato chips as I watched TV. To me, personally, as sounds a little bit more formal, so I tend to use while more when I'm speaking and when I'm writing. Also, I will use while before the main action, and same thing for as. I tend to put the word before the main action. So in this case for me, watching TV is the main action, and eating potato chips is kind of like the extra action or the bonus action. Of course, for some of you, maybe eating potato chips is the main action. That's fine. But for me, watching TV is the main action. So I usually put that after while or as. Another example. I listened to music while I washed the dishes. And I listened to music as I washed the dishes. So again, in this situation, the main activity is washing dishes. So I place while or as before that, and listening to music is sort of like the bonus or the extra activity. So that comes before the expression. So yes, you can use as and while in the exact same way here to talk about actions that happen at the same time. Again, for me, while sounds a little more casual, so I tend to prefer that a bit more in my everyday speaking and writing. I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Dark Delphin 83. Hi again, Dark Delphin. Dark Delphin says, what's the difference between inspiring and inspirational? Good question. Inspiring is used for something that causes us to feel that excitement, like we are motivated, we want to do something. That's inspiring. It was an inspiring speech. It was such an inspiring work. So something that causes us to feel motivated. Inspirational, however, is used to describe something that is intended to inspire. So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but its aim is to inspire. So for example, like the university hired an inspirational speaker for the event, or I read a list of inspirational quotes today. So something that aims to inspire is inspirational. Something that causes us to feel that motivation is inspiring. I hope that that helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ali Reza. Hello, Ali. Ali says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between till and until, and how do we use them correctly? Okay, good question. Let me introduce one more item here. So your original question included until and till, T-I-L-L. I want to introduce T-I-L. There are these three different spellings. So you will see native speakers use all three of these, until, till with two L's, and till with one L. So until and till can be used interchangeably. Until and till with one L, I should specify here. We use till, like with one L commonly, in time and distance expressions. For example, it's 10 till 2. You might hear 2 used in this situation, as in it's 10 to 2. But you can use till in that case. Or as in like a time and distance related thing, like when you're traveling. For example, it's going to be another hour till we get there. So that means until, yes, but speakers will often use till, especially in quick speech. So what is the difference here, really? An important difference comes into play when we see T-I-L-L used, that spelling with two L's. So T-I-L-L can actually be used as a verb. To till means like to grow crops or like to move soil, as in farming, like to grow vegetables. And it can also be used as a noun. It's an old-fashioned word that means cash register. So for example, the farmer tilled the soil, or lock the till when you're finished. So there are these other uses of the T-I-L-L spelling. For that reason, and just for the sake of consistency, so that we're always the same, I would recommend you use till, T-I-L-L, two L's, for those words, and use until and till with one L to mean until. That's my personal recommendation. Of course, you don't have to follow that, and not all native speakers follow that by any means. But for me, I prefer to keep the two separate, just to be consistent, like I said. You'll hear native speakers use this, of course, in speech, till and until, and you'll also see it used in writing. But my personal preference is to use till as a verb with two L's, and also to mean cash register with two L's, and use the till with one L and no apostrophe to mean until. So yes, they are used in the same way, but that's kind of my recommendation for making the differences clear. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. All right, let's move along to your next question. Next one comes from Carla. Hi, Carla. Carla says, hi, I'm from Argentina, and next month I'm going to live in Australia for a couple months. What kind of advice do you have to give me to start talking? Well, it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to be a university student, you can try to find other international students in your university. There are often university groups or meetups for international students where people can meet and chat and share their experiences. If you're not going to a university, you can look for similar community groups. So like the website meetup.com is sometimes a really good resource where you can find people interested in international exchange. So you might look for that or other international exchange groups in the place where you're going to live. Third is just my personal favorite, find your hobby in the place where you're going. Like if you already enjoy doing that thing, just try to do it in English. Then you can listen to the vocabulary words, the way people speak about your hobby. You can think about those after you take your lesson or after you participate in the activity, and maybe you can try to work on those, study those, so that you're more prepared for the next time you take the lesson. So those are three maybe ideas. Fourth, perhaps, I don't know how old you are, but if you're old enough to go to like a bar or a music venue or something like that, that can also be a really great way to meet people and to feel relaxed when talking to people too. So I hope that one of those tips helps you. Enjoy your trip to Australia. All right, thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Madi. Hello, Madi. Madi says, what's the difference between American English conversation and British English conversation? Okay, there are lots of differences. American English pronunciation and British English pronunciation are very different, and there are many different types of pronunciation inside America and inside Britain. So there are so many different ways that people speak. I speak with a West Coast American English accent, so I speak very differently from maybe a person from London, for example. Also, there are many differences in vocabulary words that are used. For example, in American English, we use the word elevator. In British English, it's not elevator, but lift. So they have the same meaning, yes, but we use different words to communicate that. I've made a video, a whiteboard video, about some words that are different between American English and British English, so you can have a look at that. You may also hear some slight differences in the prepositions that are used. So for example, in American English, I tend to say something something is different from something something. But in British English, you might hear something something is different to something something. So there are these small prepositional changes that may vary, that may change from person to person or from region to region. So these are just a few of the ways in which British English and American English conversation are different. As I said, I speak American English, West Coast American English. If you want to check out some British English, you can take a look at some of the lessons that we have. We have lots of British English listening and some other just regular videos that use British English and talk about British culture too. So have a look at those if you want to know more, and maybe you can compare the way I speak or the way like Michael or Bridget or Davy speaks to the way our British English teachers do. So have a look at those for some more information about British English conversation. I hope that that helps you. Let's move along to your next question. Okay, next question comes from Sammy. Hi, Sammy. Sammy says, how do I know when to use as or like? Yeah, I talked about this in one of the early episodes of this series, maybe episode 3. Anyway, to review, we use like when we follow the expression with a simple noun phrase. So when you're trying to decide, should I use like or as here? Look at the part that comes after that kind of space in your word. If it's just a simple noun phrase, use like. If you're using a clause with a verb in it, use as. So some examples. My neighbor's cat sounds like a monster. Or recently I sleep like a baby. So in both of those example sentences, the part after like is just a simple noun phrase. There's no verb there. Our neighbors care for our son as if he were their own child. The police treated her as if she were the one that robbed the bank. So in both of these sentences, you can see that after as, there's a clause that includes a verb. In both cases, it's were, but when you use something like this, you can use as instead of like. I should also say that native speakers often make mistakes with this. Like in American English, we tend to rely more on like and not think so much about as. But this is the rule, the generally accepted rule for right now. So I hope that that helps you. You can check out the other episode for some more examples. First question comes from Miyuki. Hi, Miyuki. Miyuki says, I want to know about test-taking tips. Okay. I will give you 5 tips. Tip number 1 is to know your test. On your test, do you need to write? Do you need to read, listen, speak? What do you need to do? First, make sure you know the test and know the requirements of the test. Number 2, check and see if the sections are timed. Check to see how much time you have for each section of your test. Number 3 is to ask yourself, have you taken the test before? What was good for you? What was not good for you? So what do you need to improve? Review your past tests to see what you need to work on for the next test. Number 4, if you can, if it's available, take a practice test. Practice tests can help you find your weak points and your strong points and help you if you have timed sections in your test as well. Number 5, if your test includes speaking, you need to practice speaking. If you don't practice, you won't be able to do it at the time that you need it. So if you don't have a language partner, you can look for one online, or you can practice with media, like repeating, shadowing media. So those are 5 quick test tips. I know they're very general, but I hope that they can apply to lots of different tests. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's go on to your next question. Next question comes from Nerdon Emanet. Hi again, Nerdon. Nerdon says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between blame, accuse, and charge? All right, blame, accuse, and charge. These are 3 verbs that have very similar meanings. Let's begin with blame. To blame means to assign someone responsibility for something. This has a negative nuance to it. Some examples. My parents blamed me for the broken vase. The police blamed the accident on a broken traffic light. To accuse someone means to suggest that someone did something bad. So it's a little bit different from blame. Blame is like assigning responsibility to someone for like a negative effect. To accuse someone of something is like someone did something wrong, maybe on purpose, and you want to suggest that it was that person. Some examples. The landlord accused him of not paying rent. She accused the company of fraud. Let's move along then to the last one, to charge. To charge is a legal term. This is a legal word which means you formally accuse someone of wrongdoing. So we do not use charge in everyday conversation when we're saying like you did this bad thing or I think it was you. Charge is used in courts. To charge someone with a crime means to officially and legally accuse them of a crime. Examples. The suspect has been charged with murder. She's been charged with breaking and entering. So that's a quick introduction to the differences between these three verbs. I hope that that helped you. Thanks for an interesting question. Okay.
Next question. Okay, next one isn't really a question, but something I have noticed that many of you do. You like to put the article a or an before your adjective, before an adjective, but you forget to use a noun. Do you know how like Mario introduces himself and he says, "It's a me"? When you forget to use some kind of noun after your adjective or whatever, that you sound a bit like Mario's. It's a nice. It's a nice. It's a nice what? It's funny to me, like, it's a nice, or it's a me. You need to include the noun that you're referring to. It's a nice video, or it's a nice explanation. It's nice, or it's bad, or it's good, or this was a nice explanation. But don't forget to use your noun after you use the adjective. It's a nice something. It's a good something. It's a bad something. So please, no article without a noun. Make sure to use your noun, and it should be in the singular form. If you're using a or an, you need to use the singular form of the noun. Don't sound like Mario. First question for today. Do you have an American accent or a British accent? A lot of you have asked this over the course of the years. I have an American accent. To be very specific, I suppose I speak with a West Coast American accent, not British English. If you want to know what British English sounds like, there are some videos on the YouTube channel with Gina, one of our other hosts. She speaks with a British accent. So you can listen to her to kind of pick up some of the differences between my accent and her accent, British English and American English. So thanks for that question. But yes, I speak American English. Next question. What does it mean they can't take that away from me? Who are they? And what does take away mean? We use the word they to mean generally just other people outside of us. This is used a lot to talk about like news or to talk about general opinions. They say that this pizza is the best pizza in the city right now. They say that your English will only improve if you study every day. They say that the most difficult thing you can do in your life is move to another country. They is just anyone. Second point, what does take away mean? Take away means to some object that belongs in one location is removed from that location. Like take away food. In American English, we use take out, actually. But take away food is a similar idea, especially like in British English, take away. So you take away your food from the restaurant. So you're taking something else. You're removing your food from the restaurant. So in the expression, they can't take that away from me, they, meaning other people outside you, can't take something away from you. Next question. How do we use the word cheers? When do we use it? Is it formal or informal? Please help. In American English, we use cheers when we're drinking. When we want to start off a drink with somebody else, we'll often clink glasses, so like touch glasses together and say cheers. We use cheers in this way in American English. In other types of English, like British English or Australian English, for example, people might use the word cheers as a way to say thank you, or as a way to say thank you in advance for something. If my friend asks me for a favor and I agree to do that favor, my friend can say cheers to me, meaning thank you in advance. So cheers, it tends to be more on the informal side. It's not a super formal expression. If you want to use it in a formal situation when you're drinking with someone, you can use cheers. But in most situations, we use it informally. Next one. What does the phrase "don't be a creep"? Don't be a creep mean? I think Michael talked about this on an old English topics video. So I talked in a live stream about the word creepy, adjective creepy. So something that causes like nervous suspense is something that's creepy. The word creep is used as a noun. Don't be a creep. A person who is creepy. A guy can be a creep. A girl can be a creep. So a creep is someone who causes creepy feelings. Like, oh, something bad might happen. I feel nervous. Like, that person's a little strange, a little weird. That person is a creep. He's a creep. She's a creep. So don't be a creep means you should not behave like a creep. Don't create nervous feelings in the other person. Don't be a creepy person. Don't be a creep. Everybody, that's good advice. Don't be a creep. Don't be a creep. Try to be a nice and understanding and respectful person. Next question. Hey Alicia, how do I make this sentence negative? Let's go to the park. If you want to make a let's blah 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 sentence negative, just put not before the verb. Let's not go to the park. Let's not, plus some verb or some verb phrase. Let's not go hiking this weekend. Let's not watch that movie tonight. I'm tired. Let's not blah 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 to make a let's sentence negative. Thanks for the question. First question. First question this week comes from Iman. Iman. Hi Iman. What's the difference between is that how it is that how it works, that's not what it says, that's not how it works? Let's start with the first expression, which is that how it is? This is a very casual expression that you can use to express like confirmation. Confirmation about a situation or confirmation about a status, but it's often used with a kind of a negative nuance. So for example, if your friend makes a plan that you disagree with, but your friend refuses to change the plan, you can say, is that how it is? It's kind of negative and it's kind of not so nice to use. So, is that how it is? That's the first one. The second one, is that how it works? This is an expression that we use to confirm how to use something. Maybe it's my first time using an iPhone, for example. When I get something right, when I learn how to use something correctly, I can say, usually with an upward intonation, oh, is that how it works? Meaning, oh, is that the correct way to use it? So we use is that how it works to confirm the correct way to use something. So you can use this with a computer, with like a car, anything that you are learning how to use. Is that how it works? So you can use this expression as confirmation before you do something too. The next expression you asked about is that's not what it says. That's not what it says is used to express disagreement about written information. Let's say you're making instant soup or like instant ramen or something, and you decide to pour cold water over your noodles to make the soup, but your friend says, no, look at the package. That's not what it says. So it here means the package, and says refers to the written directions on the package. So that's not what it says means there's some mistake here, or you've made a mistake. So the written directions don't match your behavior. That's not what it says. You can use this to express disagreement about written information. That's not what it says. The last expression was that's not how it works. That's not how it works. This is something that we use to express disagreement about how to use something. You use something incorrectly. That's not correct. That's not how it works. So I hope that that's helpful for you. Next question. Next question. What does play down mean? This is a phrasal verb. To play down something or to play something down means to decrease the significance of something. I don't want to play down how delicious my mom's Thanksgiving dinner was. Or I don't want to play down my friend's success. He's doing an amazing job. If something is really great or really interesting, or it could be negative too, to play something down means to make this thing seem less than what it actually is. If there's a scandal, for example, the president is trying to play down the seriousness of this situation. It means that it's a very serious situation, but the president is trying to make it seem less serious than it is. So to play down means to make something seem less than it actually is. Good question though, thanks. Next question comes from Kevin Wang. Hi Kevin. Kevin says, sometimes I see sentences like, your dad must have had it for at least 2 years. Why do they use have had, and what are the rules for this? So actually, don't think of it as have and had being attached there. Instead, what you should focus on in this sentence is the must have here. So must have had. When we want to talk about a high level of possibility in the past, we use must have and then the past participle form of the verb. So in this case, the speaker is making a guess about something the listener's father owned in the past for at least 2 years. So your dad must have had it for at least 2 years. So it's a past tense situation. The speaker is making a guess about the past, but the speaker is making a guess with a high level of confidence. So they use must have. Must have shows a high level of possibility. She's not here. She must have gone to work. The kids are in the car. They must have finished swimming. He's smiling at the office. He must have had a good meeting. So all of these are guesses, but these guesses show a high level of confidence. There's a high chance that the speaker's guess is correct. So the speaker uses must have plus the past participle form of the verb. Hope that's helpful for you. Next question. The next question is about if conditionals. There's no problem when you say the main clause first and you say the if clause after. Is that correct? Yes, that's fine. In the live streams, I introduced the pattern if clause first, main clause second, but I also mentioned that we can use main clause first and then if clause second. If I finish editing this video today, I can go running. I can reverse that sentence. I can go running if I finish editing this video today. Both sentences are totally correct. It's up to you to choose which order you like. Thanks for the question, though. Good one. Next question from Mifta. Mifta, hi Mifta. What is the difference between astronomy and astrology? Right, okay. So astronomy refers to the scientific study of space. So that's like stars and planets, everything outside Earth. That's the scientific study of it. Astrology refers to the idea that we can make predictions, make guesses about human behavior. And those predictions are based on the positions of like stars and planets and things, and those positions can influence human behavior, can influence our lives. Hope that's helpful. Next question. The next question is about the present perfect progressive tense. I said, I have been wanting to blah, blah, blah. Why did I use the verb want in the continuous tense as wanting? I used the progressive form wanting because from a point in the past until now, there's something I have desired, I have wanted to do. Continuously, though, to give a strong nuance of the continuous nature of that, I use the progressive or the continuous form wanting. I've been wanting to see that movie. I've been wanting to get a coffee with my friend. I've been wanting to get more sleep. I've been wanting to go jogging. Something you started to want in the past and continued to want until this point in time, you can say, I have been wanting. We can apply other verbs to this pattern too, like I've been thinking about you all week. I've been worrying about you all day. So these continuous past emotions too. We can use the progressive tense to talk about those. Next question is from Afif. Hi Afif. How do I study English speaking, or how do I improve my English speaking skills at home alone? Yeah, thanks for the question. Check out this video. I talked about it in this video right here. I think the answer is at the 12-minute and 40-second mark. So there are several tips there for how to study English alone at home. Hope that helps. Next question. Next question comes from Ricardo Villarroel. I'm very sorry. What does one mean as a subject? One means any person. It sounds rather formal. In more casual speech, we say you. Like if you went to the movie theater, where would you buy popcorn? To make it sound more formal, we could say, where would one buy popcorn? Instead of using you, we say one. So you might see this more in writing or perhaps in situations where you is not appropriate or it's too casual. So one means any person. It doesn't mean the number. It doesn't refer to another noun necessarily. A lot of if sentences, like if one were a doctor, how much money would one make? One just means a person, any person. Thanks, Ricardo. Next question. Next question is from Oscar. Hi, Oscar. Oscar says, what's the difference between it's up to you and you're up to? Oh, okay. First, it's up to you means you can decide. So for example, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? It's up to you. What movie do you want to see tonight? It's up to you. Where do you want to go for this weekend? It's up to you. You can decide. Your up to refers to things that the other person has been doing. So we use it in expressions like, you've been up to a lot of interesting things lately. Or a useful question is, what are you up to? Meaning, what are you doing? As in, what are you up to this weekend? Or what are you up to tonight? To check what someone else is doing. You can also use this for the past. What have you been up to lately? These are very nice questions to ask instead of how are you or what are you doing. Up to you means you decide. What are you up to means what are you doing. Next question from Nita Apriani. I hope I said your name right. I'm very sorry. Can I say the ketchup on that crispy chicken was savory? The flavor was barbecue, teriyaki, or black pepper. It wasn't spicy. Ah, yes, you can say a sauce is savory. That's very, very common. So something savory, as we talked about quickly in the food live stream, flavors that are not so sweet, but that are still very, very flavorful. Something that's usually a little bit more salty. We don't really use savory to explain sweet things. It's more for kind of salty things or things that have a really deep flavor about them. So yes, you can describe describe your sauce or your barbecue sauce or your chicken, whatever you put on your chicken, as savory. That's a great word to describe. Thanks for that question. Next question is from Kiara. Hi, Kiara, again. So what does sunglasses mean and what do sunglasses mean? Sunglasses is a plural noun. Should we use do instead of does? This is interesting. Okay, here your example sentence is a little bit tricky. So when you're asking about the meaning of a word, even if you know that it's a plural noun, don't worry about that in this example sentence. What does blah 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 mean? You can use anything in this pattern. This is because you're not actually asking about the object. You're not actually asking about that thing. You're asking about the word only, the word itself. So just use does. What does sunglasses mean is fine because you're looking for the actual meaning of the word. You're not asking about that actual object. You're not asking something about sunglasses. So in this specific example sentence, you can always use what does blah 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 mean. So native speakers do that too. What does something 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 mean? If we don't know an expression or if we don't know a phrase, we can use anything in that pattern. However, if you want to use a plural noun like sunglasses or any other plural noun in a sentence similar to this, you do need to change. What do sunglasses do? Or why do pants have pockets? Or who do penguins see most frequently? Please use do as you would for other plural nouns then too. But great question. Nice point to consider. Thank you. I almost forgot. There's one more thing I want to talk to you about. You guys did not ask this question, but I noticed it during the food live stream that we did recently. The difference between dessert and desert is one S in spelling. However, these two words are different. Let's start with the word dessert. The sweet food that comes at the end of a meal. Dessert is spelled with two S's. We use D-E-S-S-E-R-T to spell dessert. However, the word desert, which is spelled D-E-S-E-R-T, refers to like a dry landscape. Not many plants, not many animals live there. That's a desert. If you misspell the word dessert and you forget that S, it becomes desert. Also, very interestingly, there's another way to pronounce the word that's spelled D-E-S-E-R-T. This is a verb, to desert. So to desert means to leave something without planning to come back, like to desert a town or to desert your family, to abandon something. Also, it can mean like leaving a military position, like so to desert the army. Please note, desert as the end of a meal and to desert, meaning to leave or to abandon something, have the same pronunciation but different grammatical functions. So please be careful of this point. How can we put them all together? I'm going to desert my station so that I can enjoy dessert in the desert. Ho ho. Next question. Next question comes from Kim In Tai. Hi, Kim In Tai. Okay, what does spirit animal mean? As in, what's your spirit animal? I don't think we have that kind of question in my country. Also, what are some possible answers? Okay, a spirit animal can mean different things depending on the person that you're talking to. Generally, though, especially on the internet, we use spirit animal to refer to an animal that we think matches our personality or matches our behavior. So for example, if I'm a slow, lazy person and I don't like to do a lot of activities, I could say a sloth is my spirit animal. Or if I'm like an aggressive person and I'm alone a lot and I'm like maybe see myself as like a fighter or hunter, I don't know, maybe I could say a tiger is my spirit animal, for example. It's an animal that we feel closely matches us somehow. And it can change, like maybe on this day I feel a connection with this specific animal, so we can say that. Just do be careful. There are some people who have maybe a religious or a spiritual belief that strongly connects them to a spirit animal, or you might also hear the word, I think, spirit animal guide, perhaps. But just pay attention to the situation, and I think you can quickly understand how the person is using spirit animal. My spirit animal, I usually think, like, depending on the day, my spirit animal is either a flying squirrel or a platypus, because both of these animals are kind of like in between animals. They have a little bit of a couple different animals in them, but like a flying squirrel is kind of like flexible and adaptive and has lots of energy and goes really, really quickly. But then the platypus is just like this silly looking creature that swims around looking for food all day and then sleeps forever. So like depending on the day, I feel like I'm sometimes a flying squirrel, sometimes a platypus. I don't know. First question this week comes from Iman. Hi again, Iman. Iman says, what is the use of definite article the? We use the with a singular noun to refer to a specific instance of that noun. So when you're telling a story, we'll often introduce the first instance of a noun with a, and then after that we'll use the to refer to the specific instance of that thing. So for example, a simple story. I was walking down the street and I saw a dog. The dog was really cute. I pet the dog. So in that situation, when I introduce a dog in the story, the first time I talk about the dog in the story, I use a to introduce it. Then after that, I use the to refer to that specific dog that I introduced earlier in the story. Every other time that I want to talk about that same dog, I use the before it. So use the word the when you need to refer to a specific noun or when you have to refer to a specific group. So for example, the teachers in the school district went on strike. So specifically, we're talking about teachers in a specific school district. The teachers went on strike. The mothers at the PTA meeting organized a bake sale. It's a specific group that is defined by something else. So in this case, the mothers at the PTA meeting. Only the mothers that were at that meeting, not the mothers from a different group, for example. So we use the to talk about a specific instance of something. First question this week comes from Dave. Hi, Dave. Some people use LOL on the internet. What does it mean? Yeah, LOL can mean laugh out loud or lots of laughs. I've heard both. But either way, we use this expression to quickly explain we thought something was funny. LOL. Next question comes from Johnny. Hi, Johnny. You wrote a very long message. Thank you very much for watching. There's a slang expression that I've heard several times and don't understand well. I know, right? Using I know, right is like an invitation then for the other person to agree again, really. I know, right? So think of I know, right as like an even stronger, like even more emphasis on the agreement and an invitation for the other person to agree again. I know, right? It's like, yes, and you agree too, don't you? Next question comes from Pavel. Hi Pavel. Pavel says, hey Alicia, please tell us about the difference between to not and not to, as in I want to not and I want not to, for example. Yeah. So with these, there's not really a difference between these. Like I want not to and I want to not do something. Both of these are casual ways of explaining a negative in speech. The correct sentence would be I don't want to do something. But like native speakers sometimes like to kind of play with grammar a little bit. That's one reason they might use this pattern. Either of these patterns really. Also, sometimes we start a sentence and we make it positive, like I want to, and then we realize part of the way into the sentence, oh wait, I want to express something negative. So we change it to not or not to. So I want not to blah blah blah, or I want to not blah blah blah. Both are okay, but just keep in mind that we use that I want not to or I want to not blah 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 in casual situations. We don't generally use these in formal situations. Instead, we use I don't want to blah blah blah. I want to not get in trouble. I want not to get in trouble. The correct sentence here would be I don't want to get in trouble. But you'll hear native speakers do this for a number of reasons. So there's not really a difference between these two. But you will hear both of those used by native speakers. I hope that helps. Thanks for the question. Next question comes from Zafar Ahmad. Zafar Ahmad. Hi. Zafar asks about two sentences. Okay. 1. Have you ever cried in a film? 2. Have you ever cried at a film? My question is about the preposition in or at. Which sentence is correct? And explain the reason. Of course, I will explain the reason. Let's take a look at the first one. Have you ever cried in a film? This is actually a point where the differences between British English and American English might come into play a little bit. Have you ever cried in a film? Could have a few different meanings depending on the situation. If, for example, you are speaking to an actor and you say, have you ever cried in a film? Meaning, when you were in a film, when you were acting in a film, did you cry at any point in time? So, have you ever cried in a film? It could also mean, have you gone to watch a movie in a movie theater and cried at the movie theater or in the movie theater? Your second sentence, have you ever cried at a film? So using at shows like the direction of an emotion. Like we use it with other emotions as well. Like my mom is mad at me, or my dad is angry at me. So it's showing the direction of emotion. So in this case, have you ever cried at a film? Meaning, did a film cause you to cry? Have you ever cried because of a film? In my case though, if I wanted to ask my friend if a movie had ever caused them to cry, I would say, have you ever cried at a movie? Next question comes from Sagri Karakilar. I am so sorry. Hi Alicia, can I use though instead of nevertheless? It looks as if their meanings are the same. Thank you. This is a great question. Though and nevertheless, yes, while they do have similar meanings sometimes, they have different grammatical functions. So nevertheless means in spite of the thing that was said before, or despite the prior thing. Nevertheless is used only as an adverb. Though, however, can be used as an adverb, yes, but it can also be used as a conjunction. Though can also mean nevertheless or in spite of. However, it also sometimes just has the meaning of but. Though I almost ran out of time, I finished the test with a perfect score. He told me he would call at 8, though it's 8:15 and I haven't heard from him. I almost ran out of time. Nevertheless, I finished the test with a perfect score. Her proposal was rejected. Nevertheless, she continued with her research. Hope that helps answer your question though. Next question. Okay. Next question comes from Igor. Hi Igor. Why are verbs like bury, hurry, study, tidy, and try in the irregular verbs list? Their past simple and past participle forms have ed endings like other regular verbs. The course books used have listed these verbs in the irregular verb list. All right. Tough question because I did not create the textbooks and I don't know the logic that was used for the textbooks. But if I had to guess why those verbs are included as irregular verbs, I would imagine it's because these verbs all end in y. And yes, although the verbs do end in ed, there is an irregular change that happens with verbs that end in y. So that's to drop the y and add ied instead of just an ed. So we maintain that e sound like tidy, bury. However, the spelling of the word changes. Next question comes from Marcos Correa. Hi, Marcos. Marcos says, Alicia, help, in all caps. Alicia, help. The words whether and weather have the same pronunciation, and does weather have the same sense of if? Could you use it in some examples? Please reply. Yes, yes, you're correct. Thanks, Marcos. Weather, as in like clouds, sunlight, rain, snow, wind. Weather and weather, W-H-E-T-H-E-R, they have the same pronunciation, yes. And the WH form does contain the meaning of if, as in whether or not something. So native speakers will often say whether or not, but we can reduce this to if. Some examples. He hasn't decided whether or not he's coming to dinner. I don't know whether or not I'm going to travel this summer. Do you know whether or not your parents are at home? In each of these sentences, we could change whether or not to if. I hope that answers your question, Marcos. Thanks. Next question is from Poria. Poria asks, what's the difference between these words? Interior and internal, exterior and external. All right, well, there are grammatical differences. Interior and exterior are nouns. Internal and external are adjectives. We use interior and exterior to talk about the inside and the outside of something. But internal and external are used, those are adjectives. We use them to talk about the qualities of something. Next question comes from Kesava. Kesava, hi again. Kesava says, what's the difference between bored with and bored by? Great question. There's no difference, actually. Bored with and bored by Also, we use bored of, bored of. So these are all used in the same way to explain something that causes us to feel bored. I'm so bored by this lesson. I'm so bored with this textbook. I'm so bored of you. So we can use all of these in the same way. You might find that some people have personal preferences for which one they choose to use, but we use them all in the same way. Next question from Stanislav. Hi, Stanislav. Stanislav asks, how do you politely address unfamiliar women and men? Lady, Miss, Mrs., Mr., and Sir. Ah, nice question. All right, if you're at a formal situation, it's better to use Mr. with men. Sir tends to be used more in like a service relationship. So the same thing with ma'am for women. Mrs. is used for married women. If I don't know if someone is married or not, a woman is married or not, I'll use miss. Nice question though. Next question comes from Paul. Hi Paul. Let me ask a question or let me ask a question. Which is the correct sentence? Both of these are actually correct. Let me is the reduced form of let me. So we use this in more casual situations. Let me ask a question is fine too. It just sounds more formal. And when we reduce the sounds, actually, it sounds a little more natural. So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. That's fine to use in speech. In writing, however, L-E-M-M-E looks very casual. So we typically don't use that in formal writing. But both of them are actually correct. Next question. Next question is from Leon. Hi Leon. What are the differences between test, exam, quiz, and questionnaire? And when should I use each of them? Nice question. All right, let's start with test and exam. We use these two words quite similarly when we're talking about tests of knowledge, or like examinations at school. We can use either of those. Like I have a test this week or I have an exam this week. I think in American English, test is probably used more commonly than exam or the long form examination. However, when we want to check the status of our bodies, we'll often use the word exam. So for example, a physical exam, that's an expression we use to mean like a full check of the body, which is commonly done maybe once a year or so. So an exam, like a dental exam or an eye exam, is a check of the condition of your body as well. A quiz is essentially a mini test. A questionnaire, however, is quite different from the three that we've talked about thus far. A questionnaire is something that's given usually to customers. That is for feedback. We use questionnaires for feedback. First question this week comes from Danielle. Hi Danielle. Danielle says, hi Alicia, is it really a mistake to refer to animals with she or he instead of it in cases where the animal is considered part of the family, like cats or dogs? Ah, okay. No, it's not a mistake at all. If the pet is like a member of the family, like you've described, it's very common to use he or she to talk about the animal. Cats, dogs, we can use this for birds, hamsters, hedgehogs, whatever the pet is. Very common. Also, when it's your first time meeting someone else's animal, it's quite common to ask, is it a boy or a girl? And then after that, you can use he or she to talk about the animal. We tend to use it when talking about animals we are not familiar with, like a stray cat, for example, or maybe like an animal we see at the zoo. We would use it in those cases. When we're talking about animals that are parts of our family, we tend to use he or she to talk about that. Thanks for the question.
First question this week comes from Silas. Hi, Silas. Silas says, hi, Alicia. How's it going? I'd like to know the meaning of the expression weird flex, but okay. And how do I use it in a sentence? Okay, this is a bit of recent slang. Weird flex, but okay, focuses in on the meaning of the word flex. So if you are interested in like health or like muscle training or anything like that, you might know the verb to flex. So to flex is what we do when we want to show off a muscle we have been training. So when we flex a muscle, we put energy into the muscle to make the muscle like stand out. We want it to look bigger, like we want to show off that muscle. So when we flex a muscle, we're trying to show it off. We're like excited about that thing or we're proud about it or something like that. So flex here in this expression, weird flex, does not refer to muscle, it doesn't refer to the body, but actually something else that the speaker or the writer is trying to show off. So it's something that seems strange. So in the example of muscles and muscle training, like the person who wants to show off wants to show their muscles. But when we use the expression weird flex, someone is trying to show off something that seems strange. And then we add, but okay, at the end to mean, I don't really understand, but all right. So to give an example of this, if I, on Twitter, write like, I spent $3,000 on socks this month, woohoo! And I talk about how excited I am. I'm like showing off that I spent $3,000 on socks. Someone might respond to me, weird flex, but okay. So that means like it's strange that you want to show off that you spent $3,000 on socks. Like that's a really strange thing to be excited about, but okay. So to give another example, your friend might tell you something like, I have the biggest collection of rocks in my whole neighborhood. And you might say, weird flex, but okay. So again, it's like that's a strange thing that you want to show off, but okay, whatever it is. Like it's not hurting anybody. It's just a little bit weird that you want to show that off or you want to brag or boast about that thing. So that's what weird flex, but okay means. You see this one a lot online. I hope that that helps you. Thanks very much for this interesting question.
Next question. Next question comes from Dewey. Hi, Dewey. Could you tell me when to use any more and no longer? Sure. Okay. So both of these are used to refer to an action, something we did or something someone did in the past, but from this point in the present, that action is not going to continue. We use any more when we use a negative in the sentence. Some examples. I'm not going to go to that restaurant anymore. He doesn't help me anymore. They don't drink with us anymore. We use no longer in positive statements, and it tends to sound more formal. You'll also see that no longer can be put at the beginning of the sentence to increase the level of formality. So you might hear this in speeches, for example. Using no longer at the beginning of the sentence really emphasizes that the action is not going to continue and that it sounds quite formal. So no longer might have a couple different places in the sentence. Let's look at some examples. No longer will we tolerate these problems. She no longer has to come to work early. We will no longer be a part of the group. So I hope that helps you understand some of the key differences between these two expressions. Thanks for the question.
Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Riggins. Hi, Riggins. Riggins says, hi, Alicia. I'm Riggins from Haiti. I'm good at English, but due to a lack of practice, I've kind of lost my touch because I'm sick and tired of the learning process. So I'd like to know how to keep my English up, please. Okay, first, I'm sure that you're not the only person. Like, I lose motivation all the time. I would say that if you are having trouble keeping your motivation up, you should try looking for a different way to practice or a different way to use English. So, for example, if there's a hobby that you have in your native language, you could try doing that in English. Or maybe there's a book or a movie that you are really interested in or that seems cool, and you want to understand that in English. I would suggest trying to find something that's not like a traditional textbook, or it's not a traditional way of learning, like going to a class and doing worksheets and that kind of thing. I would suggest actually trying to use English in your everyday life to like do your work or to study something or to accomplish a hobby. Maybe you make a new friend who can speak only English. So I would suggest finding something outside of a traditional learning setting to do. I think that that might help you a little bit with your motivation. That has helped me a lot in the past. Actually, making friends with people who cannot speak my language has been hugely motivating for me, and I try to study the vocabulary words that they often talk about, and I try to learn from their speech patterns too. So I would suggest trying to find something to do with other people as much as possible that uses English. So I hope that this helps you and helps other people with their motivation issues. It happens to all of us at some point in time, but I hope that these tips can help. Thanks very much for this question.
Next question. Next question comes from Aravind. Hi, Aravind. Aravind says, what is the difference between took and taken? And have you ever been to India? Okay, took and taken. Took is the past tense of the verb take. I took a break. He took my drink. They took our passports. Taken is the past participle form of take. Have you ever taken a trip to France? She's taken the test 3 times. We've taken long vacations every summer for 10 years. So I hope that helps. It's a difference in grammar. And no, I have not been to India. Thanks for the question.
Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ahmet Farouk. Hello, Ahmet. Ahmet says, what is the difference between may and can? Okay, historically, may is used to ask for permission. Can is used to express ability to do something or lack of ability to do something. So that's the historical use of may and can. In today's English, however, lots of people use can to ask for permission to do something. We do not, however, use may to talk about ability. So let's take a look at some examples. Can I go to the restroom? May I go to the restroom? Can I leave early today? May I leave early today? So in today's English, these all refer to the same thing. They're all requests to use the restroom or to leave early. In today's American English, I would say that using may tends to sound a little bit more formal than using can. If you ever want to be sure to sound polite and to make sure you're communicating clearly, you can use may. But in most day-to-day conversations, we use can. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question.
Let's go to the next question. Next question comes from Pierre. Hi, Pierre. Pierre says, hi, could you please explain the difference between belly, tummy, and stomach? Thanks. Sure. Okay, let's start with stomach. Stomach is the most neutral word you can use to talk about this area of your body. If you need to talk about this area in your life somewhere in a polite situation, stomach is probably the best word to use. Examples. My stomach hurts. He got hit in the stomach. They've been doing stomach exercises every other day. So now let's talk about tummy. Tummy is a word that children use. Adults use tummy when they're talking to children. It sounds very young. It sounds very childish. Adults typically don't use this word when talking to other adults unless they're trying to be funny or unless they really want to sound childish for some reason. So tummy is really a children's word. Examples. Do you have a tummy ache? I want to put food in my tummy. Now, belly is a casual word that adults do use. It sounds kind of rough. It's not a dirty word at all, but it tends to be used more by men than by women, I think. It's a very casual expression to refer to your stomach, but we usually use it to talk about eating and food. Some examples. My belly is so full. I need to put some food in my belly. All right, so I hope that helps you. In most situations, if you're not sure what to use stomach. You can't go wrong with stomach. Hope that helps.
Next question comes from Giovanni. Hi, Giovanni. Giovanni says, hi, Alicia. My name is Giovanni. I'm from Venezuela. I've always wanted to know the meaning of this sentence, don't get twisted, even though it's not used very often. Thanks. Yeah, you're right. This isn't such a common expression. I found only a few references to this expression, and they were typically from music, actually. So this expression could mean like don't get angry or don't get upset or don't get nervous. So it refers to being in like a negative condition. So twisted, if you imagine like a towel. Do we have some? Oh, we do, yeah. For this explanation, let's imagine like a towel. So a regular, just plain towel, when we hold the towel, looks like this. But if we twist the towel like this, it's under tension, like it's under pressure. So if we imagine ourselves as like the towel, like we're under pressure, we're really tight, we're really tense. We could be angry, we could be nervous, we could be upset about something. So if someone says to you, don't get twisted, it's like, chill out. Like, don't be upset, don't be angry. Relax, in other words. So I would guess that this is what this word means, or what this expression means, rather. But as you said, this is not such a common expression. We don't say, don't get twisted, really, in American English. You might hear people say something like, just chill out, as I've said, or maybe like don't worry, or there are a couple of other slightly more rude expressions that we use too. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question.
All right, let's go on to the next question. Next question comes from Satish. Hi, Satish. Satish says, what's the difference between I shall and I will? Similarly, between shall I and will I? Okay. First, any use of shall is going to sound more formal than will. The difference between I shall and shall I is that I shall begins a statement. Shall I begins an offer. I shall call the police. This sounds very formal. Shall I call the police? That's an offer. It sounds very formal. Will, however, is quite different. I will begins a statement, yes, but will I does not begin an offer. Will I is used to think out loud. So when we are imagining our future schedule and we're thinking about something in the future, we're alone, we're talking to ourselves and thinking about our future schedule, we might use will I. So examples. I will call the police. That's natural. We would probably use the contracted form I'll call the police. Will I have time to go to the bank today? Will I be able to get a coffee this morning? So this is not used so much in conversation. We use this will I sort of pattern when we're thinking about things we might be able to do in the future and we're thinking to ourselves about it. So I hope that helps. That's kind of a quick introduction to the differences between these two. Thanks for the question.
Next question comes from Malik. Hi, Malik. Malik says, is this sentence correct? The color of shirts of players. Could you explain more about two possessive nouns in a row? Thanks in advance. Yeah, great question. This is kind of tricky. So in this situation, we would say the color of the players' shirts. So a key here is that we're using players and we're using an apostrophe after the S in players. That apostrophe is acting as a possessive apostrophe. So we have two ways of creating the possessive in English. We can use of, as in the color of the players' shirts, and we can use the apostrophe S form. So for example, Alicia's would be Alicia apostrophe S. The apostrophe S shows something is belonging to me. That's my thing, Alicia's phone. So in this situation, we have players. Players. Here, we're talking about shirts that belong to players. So it's not just one person. When a noun ends with an S, we make the plural possessive form by adding an apostrophe to the end of the word, and we do not add another S. So in the singular form, when I said Alicia's phone, for example, Alicia is one person. So I write Alicia apostrophe S. In this example, however, because we're talking about a group of people, players, we don't use an apostrophe S because the word already ends in S, and it sounds kind of strange to try to say like players or something like that. So to avoid this, we simply write players with S and add an apostrophe at the end. So this shows the plural form. That means plural possessive apostrophe there. It's very natural to use that apostrophe form of the possessive when we're talking about something that belongs to a person. So again, in my example, when I said Alicia's phone, it sounds quite natural to use that apostrophe S to show possession as a person. In the plural form too, players' shirts. It's a shirt or shirts that belong to a player. So when we're not using a person, when we're using like an object, it might be a little bit more common to see an of pattern used there. In this case, it's color of the shirts. So color is like a characteristic that belongs to the shirt, or in this case, shirts. So here, it sounds natural to use the of pattern because there's not a person here. We're talking about the characteristics of an object. Color of the shirts. So of can be used to talk about like characteristics of things, and the apostrophe S form can be used to talk about like things that belong to people. Let's look at one more example though that uses no people. So for example, the color of the seats in the cars or the color of the car's seats. So we could use either of these patterns. I personally would probably use the color of the seats in the cars because we can clearly see like the levels of belonging. First we have color, and the color belongs to the seats, and the seats are in the cars. So I think that sounds much nicer. You might see that color of the car's seats sentence, though as we talked about, it's a little bit less natural maybe to use the possessive apostrophe there with car because it's not actually a person. I think you might use that though. I don't think it's incorrect to use that, but I personally would prefer to use something that kind of clearly shows the hierarchy, the level of belonging or the levels of belonging, as in the first example, the color of the seats in the car. I hope that this helps you. Thank you very much for this interesting question.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question comes from Marcelo Oliveira. Hi, Marcelo. Marcelo says, hi, Alicia. Are you okay? Thanks for your awesome videos. My question is, what's the meaning of gung-ho? I heard this in an interview with Taylor Swift. Thanks a lot. Okay, so gung-ho. Let's start with an example. I'm gung-ho about my new project. Gung-ho means you are full of energy and you are excited about something. It means that you're enthusiastic. You're going to put all your effort into that thing. So when I say I'm gung-ho about my new project, it means I'm really excited, I'm really enthusiastic, I'm going to do everything I can to make that a success. Gung-ho. So I hope that answers your question about gung-ho. First question from Harley Passos. Harley I'm very sorry. Harley asks, what is the use of get plus adverb or preposition? For example, I get down. This is a question about phrasal verbs with get. We can use a lot of different things after the word get. In your example, to get down, we use it when dancing, for example, like I want to get down this weekend. It's sort of an old-fashioned expression though, to get down. We can use a lot of different words after the verb get though. For example, get into. To get into something means to become interested in something. You might hear to get at, like get at me or get at your professor. To get at means to reach out to or to communicate with, but it's a very casual expression. You can say get after, like I need to get after my homework, for example. It means to like chase after or try to do something. Also, to get in, like to get into a club, to get into a restaurant, to get into a party. The nuance is that something is challenging, but you can gain access to that thing. Like I got into the party last night, but I wasn't on the list. There are a lot of different uses of the word get. I can't talk about all of them in this video because there are so many. So if you're curious about the various phrasal verbs that we can use with the word get, check out a dictionary. That's a really good place to start. Next question. Next question comes from Long Ann. Long Ann asks, what is the difference between simple past tense and past continuous tense or past progressive tense? Simple past tense we use for actions that started and ended in the past. So the beginning of the action and the end of the action happened in the past. So for example, the sentence, I ate breakfast is a simple past tense statement. I ate breakfast. Ate is the simple past tense. The past continuous tense, however, or the past progressive tense, is something we use to talk about an action that was continuing at a specific point in time in the past. If I want to use the past progressive tense, I can say I was eating breakfast. Using that continuous tense, using that progressive tense implies I want to explain something else that happened at that time, or maybe I want to add some more information. So for example, I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock this morning, or I was eating breakfast when the phone rang, or I was eating breakfast and watching TV at the same time. I was eating breakfast while studying today. By using the past progressive, I'm explaining that an action was continuing at a specific point in time, as in the example, I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, or I can use past progressive to show one action was happening at the same time as another action in the past. If I use just the simple past tense, I'm just saying a simple fact, in other words. This action happened. I ate breakfast at 8 o'clock. If I want to emphasize the continuous nature of the action for some reason, like I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, I can use the past progressive tense. In that case, it might be in response to a question like, what were you doing at 8 o'clock this morning? So if someone wants to ask maybe what you were doing at a specific point in time, like someone is suspicious of you, like, what were you doing last night? You can say like, oh, I was having dinner with my friends last night. But past tense, simple past tense is something we use for actions which start and finish. in the past. But progressive, the progressive tense in past can be used to emphasize the continuing nature of that situation or that action. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. First question this week. First question this week comes from Patrick. Hi Patrick. Patrick says, I know the basic English words and I understand if someone speaks in English. For example, I understand your videos perfectly, but I have problems building correct English sentences, like when I speak with another person. Do you have any tips for how to build correct sentences? I think that this just comes with practice, honestly. It's difficult to do, but I know that there's not always a person that you can ask for help. I will tell you a secret. When I don't have confidence with something, when I don't know how to answer something, this is what I do. Seriously, just Google it. I put quotation marks around like the phrase that I'm trying to make, and then I search Google for it. And if it's there, great. Then that means I can use it. Maybe like thousands of people have used that phrase. I know it's probably a common phrase. If there are no results, then that probably means I've made a mistake somehow. So that's maybe one good way to help you as you try to build phrases by yourself. So try that out. Next question. Next question comes from Yasin. Yasin, I'm very sorry. What's the difference between on time and in time? Is it you arrived just on time or you arrived just in time? We use on time to refer to doing something at the correct time, doing something at a scheduled time. So for example, I need to get to work on time, meaning at the correct time. Or did you make it to your appointment on time? In time, however, is used when we want to kind of give a nuance of rushing or hurrying for something. I need to leave my house now to get to the airport in time for my flight. I need to study for my test now if I want to be in time for the party later. You should probably leave now if you want to be in time for the movie. In time for something else. So I want to do action A to make my schedule meet this other condition, this other thing I would like to do, or this other thing I need to do. In time for has the nuance of a deadline. We can use this expression in like a panic, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it in time. Like to submit a paper, I'm not going to make it in time. In time means like before the deadline, whereas on time has the meaning of completing an action or completing something at a scheduled time. Next question comes from Huang Sena. Huang Sena, hi. I love your name, Alicia. Is Alicia a common name in the US? I happen to have a friend named Alyssa. Also, what's your personal favorite name? A common name in the US? Alicia, I don't think Alicia is so common in the US. And when I was growing up, I didn't have any other friends named Alicia. Also, the spelling of my name is a little strange. Usually it's spelled Alicia. Maybe you know the artist Alicia Keys. That's how she spells her name. So my name was commonly confused as Alicia a lot. So I've heard like Allison and Alyssa and Allie and so on. Those are fairly common, I think. But Alicia, especially my spelling, is not so common actually. So, what's my favorite name? My favorite name is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Next question. Next question comes from Gerson Silva. Hi. What is the difference between shade and shadow? Oh, great. This is a great question. Both of these words can be used to refer to a place that is darker than its surroundings because there's an object that is blocking the light. We can say there's shade over there or there's a shadow over there. In that sentence, they are used the same. However, shadow refers to the dark shape only. So a person can cast a shadow. We use cast, the verb cast, with a shadow. I cast a shadow when I stand in the sun, for example. Shade, however, as a noun, refers to or has the nuance of a kind of shelter. So shelter provided by some other object, shelter from the light, shelter from the sun. So we would say stand in the shade because shade has the nuance of shelter. We would not say stand in the shadow. Shadow does not carry the nuance of shelter in the way that shade does. Interestingly enough though, shade and shadow are both used as verbs as well. To shadow something means to follow something closely. To shadow someone at work means to follow someone at work and try to understand their job, for example. Shade is used as a verb to mean to create shelter from light. For example, the canopy shaded us from the sun. Shade also has some interesting uses. You might hear the slang phrase to throw shade. Throwing shade is a really interesting slang expression that we use, which means to communicate disrespect or to communicate like contempt. Bad feelings for something. When you're speaking generally, in most cases, when you want to talk about a dark, cool area, we should say shade. Stand in the shade. When you want to talk only about the dark area, that dark object, use shadow. Next question. Next question comes from Long. Is the H sound not always pronounced when followed by another consonant? For example, wall hanger or come back home. Yes, the H sound is often pronounced very softly. It's quite difficult to pronounce all of these syllables clearly. Like in the example, come back home, it's quite difficult to say the H sound clearly. So in those cases, it's quite common to make the H sound quite soft, like come back home. Danny's second question, can you talk about ride and its uses? Like take someone for a ride. Can I take a ride? Ride is another verb that has a lot of different uses. You use the example, to take someone for a ride means to drive together with someone. To go for a ride has the nuance of doing something just for fun. It's just for fun. I want to take a ride to a location. I want to take a ride to the mountains this weekend or take a ride to the beach. But to take someone for a ride means to invite someone to drive somewhere with you in a car. That's one way to use ride. You can also say, give me a ride. Can you give me a ride? So this is a request expression. I don't have a car. My friend has a car. I want my friend to take me in their car to a location. I can say, can you give me a ride to the movie theater? Can you give me a ride to the lake? Give me a ride is a request. So give me a ride in your car. So there are a lot of uses of ride. If you want to see all of them, or if you want to see more of them, I recommend checking a dictionary. There are quite a few, and I can't talk about them all in this video. So please check a dictionary. Question comes from Winston. Hi, Winston. Winston says, I don't understand English. I want to learn, but I don't know how to start. I'm a newbie. Right, lots of questions like this. So really, there are a lot of different ways that you can start studying a language. Of course, we have lots of videos on our YouTube channel, and we have a whole website to try to help people who are studying English. You can check us out at EnglishClass101.com. You can find like apps, you can find worksheets, podcasts to listen to, so that can be a nice way to start. We have some videos for beginners also, so if you're just starting, you can check some of the beginner level videos we have on the channel. For example, English in 3 minutes. That's a good set of videos you can watch to learn some basic phrases, I think. So that might be a nice place for you to start. But let's look at some other ideas for beginners specifically. 1. Join an English class in your city. 2. Get an English textbook and study at home. 3. Make a language exchange with an English speaker. 4. Study vocabulary with apps. Try out those. Those are a few ideas. Of course, you can always use our videos on the channel as well. So I hope that helps a little bit. I'm sorry. Where do we use wanna and gonna and how? This question is about the casual contracted forms of want to and going to. So want to becomes wanna, going to becomes gonna in casual speech. We use them in exactly the same way we would use I want to, I'm going to, he wants to, she wants to, he's going to, she's going to. We use them in exactly the same way, which means we use them in casual situations, like I want to take a day off, or I'm going to go to the beach this weekend, or do you want to see a movie tonight? We use them in exactly the same way. We use want to and going to, but we use them in speech. Typically, we don't write these unless we're writing very casual messages, like text messages to our friends or something. Next one, I got the next question a couple times, like maybe 3 or 4 times. Okay, the question was about the adjective comparison video that we did a while ago. So I introduced the word fun as an irregular adjective in terms of the comparative form. So fun is an adjective we use for an activity or something that's enjoyable, something we like to do. Fun is different from the adjective funny. Fun is an adjective and a noun, actually. Funny is just an adjective. Fun refers to an enjoyable activity. Funny, however, refers to something that causes us to laugh. It makes us laugh because something is humorous. Something is humorous. So, for example, we can say going to an amusement park is fun. It's not funny, it's not humorous, but it's fun. Let's kind of break this down a little bit. Let's think about it like fun in the adjective form here. Fun is an enjoyable activity, something we enjoy doing. Funny, however, causes laughter because of humor. Something funny is humorous. It is like witty, or there's interesting wordplay or whatever. So fun is kind of, think of fun as like doing an activity. Going to the movie theater is fun. Going to an amusement park is fun. Watching these videos maybe is fun. I don't know, making these videos is fun. But funny, we use funny for example, a person or a movie or something that causes us to laugh because of humor. So things that are fun. Fun, 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 not fun. Funny, funny, not funny, not funny, funny, not funny, fun. So going to watch a funny movie is fun. Think about that. Because these two words are different. Fun is an adjective, funny is an adjective. Fun, the comparative form is more fun or less fun. The comparative form of funny is funnier or not as funny. So that's why I used two different examples in that video. Thanks for that question though. Next question. Next question comes from Carmel. Carmel says, do you have any ideas on how to improve speaking skills in English? Yeah, well, to improve your speaking, you have to practice speaking. Here are a couple of ideas that you can use to maybe help you improve your speaking. These are ideas for just ways to practice, so chances to practice. Number one, get a partner you can practice speaking English with. This can be in your city or in your community. So find a partner to practice speaking English with. This can be a language exchange partner, for example. 2, if you can't find anyone in your town or in your city to practice speaking English with, you can try to find a partner online. 3, try recording yourself speaking. You can use your phone to do this if you like. Just record your voice saying something and then listen to it again. You might not realize it, but it's actually really helpful to hear your own voice, like outside of your body. Actually, we have something on the website. You can check at EnglishClass101.com. There's a voice recorder function. So you can record your voice and then compare your voice to the sound of a native speaker's voice and try to practice until your voice matches the sound of their voice. So that could be another idea. Number 4, try repeating the things the characters in English TV and English movies say. So if you're watching TV, if you're watching a video online, if you're listening to music, something in English, try to repeat the thing you hear. So not only listening, but try to practice saying the things the characters or the artists are saying too. Number 5, kind of a strange suggestion maybe, but try talking to yourself in English. Actually, I do this a lot. I'm studying Japanese and I talk to myself in Japanese from time to time. So that helps me a little bit, but helps me get comfortable just saying words, saying phrases too. So maybe that's helpful for you. Those are 5 ideas for what you can do to improve your speaking skills. Next question. Next question comes from Huang Seina. I'm very sorry. I've never been to Japan. I've never been to Japan before. I've never eaten horse. I've never eaten horse before. My question is, if you put before at the end of those sentences, does it mean you are in Japan right now or you are eating horse right now? No, not necessarily. Think of before at the end of the sentence as before now. I've never eaten horse before now, in other words. You could use this just before you eat horse or just before you go to Japan, if you like, as an emphasis phrase. but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are in Japan now or that you're eating horse now. You could use it in that way, sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. If you'd like to emphasize it, like if you're about to eat horse, for example, and you say, I've never eaten horse before, you could show your interest or perhaps to show maybe some anxiety or nervous feelings about what you're about to do. But no, it does not necessarily mean you are in that place. Like, for example, you could just be having a conversation. Have you eaten horse before? No, I've never eaten horse before. It could just be a conversation about it. But really, before just means before now. Next question. Next question comes from Luan Garcia. Hi, Luan. Luan asks, I would like to know how to use down, up, off, in, on, and out after a verb and why it's necessary. Oh dear. Luan, this is a very big question. Your question is about phrasal verbs. These are all called phrasal verbs. Verb plus adverb or preposition. There are an enormous amount of phrasal verbs. I cannot possibly talk about all of them in one video. Phrasal verbs are necessary because they are part of speech. They are simply a type of verb. They are a type of expression. So you need to know them because they will help you to communicate effectively. So if you want to know more about specific phrasal verbs, I would suggest checking a dictionary. Next question. Next question comes from Huang Jiang-ik. Huang Jiang-ik, I'm very sorry. Which one is correct? I work out for 1 to 2 hours a day. I work out for 1 or 2 hours a day. I drink coffee 2 to 3 times a day. I drink coffee 2 or 3 times a day. Both of these are correct, actually. In this case, there are very, very small differences between these. 1 to 2 hours a day means between 1 and 2 hours. If you say, I work out for 1 or 2 hours a day, it means it's determined, like 1 hour only for workout or 2 hours only for a workout. So the difference here is, are you determining, are you deciding 1 hour or 2 cups of coffee or 3 cups of coffee? Or is it between those two amounts? So using 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 means between those two amounts. Using or shows it's either A or B, but not between those two. This is the difference between to and or. Next question. Next question comes from Bowie Dente. Bowie Dente. Very sorry. Bowie Dente asks, when can I use ever in a present perfect sentence? Like, I have ever. Ever means at any time or at all times. You can use ever when you're asking a question, like, have you ever, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever been to France? Have you ever eaten ramen? Have you ever taken a trip to the mountains? For example, we can use ever when making questions. That's one. But because ever means at all time or at any times, we may not use it to answer a question like that. Have you ever, blah, blah, blah. We usually say yes or no in response to that. We can say, I have never ever taken a trip to France, or I have never ever forgotten my keys, for example. I have never ever, blah, blah, blah. But in that case, it still means never. An expression like never ever just emphasizes the word never. So to use ever, we need to pair ever with a verb in a sentence. So we can't say I have ever, just I have plus a verb. We cannot say I have ever. That's incorrect. I have at any time or at all times. It's redundant. It's not necessary. We can, however, use ever in a negative expression, like I haven't ever been to France, or she hasn't ever eaten cheese, for example. So we have to pair ever with a negative to make a response. We use ever for present perfect tense questions and paired with a negative, have or has, to make a response, to make a negative response. So please keep those two in mind. Next question. Next question comes from Rashkesh. I'm sorry. Where do we use wanna and gonna and how? This question is about the casual contracted forms of want to and going to. So want to becomes wanna, going to becomes gonna in casual speech. We use them in exactly the same way we would use I want to, I'm going to, he wants to, she wants to, he's going to, she's going to. We use them in exactly the same way, which means we use them in casual situations, like I want to take a day off, or I'm going to go to the beach this weekend, or do you want to see a movie tonight? We use them in exactly the same way. We use want to and going to, but we use them in speech. Typically, we don't write these unless we're writing very casual messages, like text messages to our friends or something.
First question. A lot of you have asked about what to do to get a voice that sounds like mine. When I'm making these videos, I'm specifically trying to speak clearly, so I'm clearly separating my words. The way that I talk with my friends and the way that I talk regularly is a bit different than the way that I talk on this channel. But if you want to try to get this kind of pronunciation, the best advice I have is just to repeat this kind of pronunciation. It depends on your goal. If you want to learn to speak like me or to speak like somebody else that you really admire, you should try to mimic them. That's what I do, and that's actually a strategy that I use when I study other languages as well. So if I hear something interesting, that a vocabulary word that a friend has used, like in Japanese, for example, or they have a really good intonation, or just the way they deliver, the way they say something is really interesting to me, or I want to be able to use that too. I put that in my head, I think about that, and then I try to replicate that. I try to copy that, essentially. To make this explanation shorter, mimic. If you want to learn to speak like me, mimic me. If you want to learn to speak like somebody else, try to mimic someone else. But just keep in mind that the way that I talk in these videos is different from the way that I talk in real life.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Next question. Next question is from Suha. How do we write a good paragraph? Number one, you need to think about the position of your paragraph in your overall document. Let's think about writing a document in terms of 3 parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In the introduction section, you need to introduce the key information your reader needs to know what they're going to read about later in your document. So if your paragraph is in the introduction, you need to think about how to introduce your information there. Second, the body section of your document should be where you include your evidence, your supporting materials, your opinions, any references that you have. So if your paragraph falls in the body of the document, you should have these themes in mind. If your paragraph is in the conclusion of your document, at the end, you should be concluding or finishing your ideas. It's typically a good idea to summarize the ideas you presented in the body and the introduction of your document in the concluding section. 2, use transitions. When you're writing, it's good to transition from one sentence to another and to use good transitions between paragraphs themselves. So some example transitions could be first, second, third, or next, then, finally, after that, moreover, additionally, furthermore. So transitions help the reader connect the ideas that you're presenting in your writing. 3, avoid trying to include too much information in one sentence. Remember, you need to try to present your ideas as clearly and accurately as possible. So if you find you're just writing and writing and writing and the sentence is becoming extremely long, take a moment and look at the goal of this sentence. What are you actually trying to communicate? If you need to, break it into smaller sentences and connect them with transitions. Next question. Next question comes from Garrison Silva. Hey again, Garrison. When can I use the expression take for granted? Take for granted. This is an expression which we typically use in the negative, like don't take something something for granted. Don't take blah 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 for granted. It means don't forget to appreciate this thing or this person. So for example, don't take your parents for granted, or don't take this opportunity for granted. These expressions mean don't forget to appreciate these things, or don't just disregard your parents, or don't disregard this opportunity. Recognize the importance of something. So if you are given a good opportunity, for example, or someone gives you good advice, or a very nice gift perhaps, we would typically use this with the negative. Don't take something something for granted, meaning don't forget to show your appreciation for that thing or for that person. Question comes from Carla. Hi Carla. Carla asks, how do native speakers use to have? I have seen, I have got. Formal and informal. Sure, we use the verb to have for a lot of different meanings. There's a grammatical function for the verb have when we pair it with the past participle form of a verb, like I have plus past participle to make the present perfect tense, or I had plus past participle to make the past perfect tense.
So there's that kind of grammatical function of the verb have. However, if you just want to use the verb have in everyday situations, like I have a phone, or I have a camera, or I don't have any money, for example, then to have in that case just means to own something or to hold something, to be keeping something. So please consider the sentence that you're looking at with the verb have in it. If it comes before a verb in the past participle, it's probably a past perfect or a present perfect expression. If you're seeing something after the verb have, like an object, in my examples, like a phone or a camera or money, then it's probably referring to owning something or keeping something. So those are probably two of the most common ways that you'll see the verb have and its variations in at least American English speech.
Next question. Next question comes from Daniel Silvero. Hi, Daniel. Daniel asks, what is the difference between wish and desire? Greetings from Paraguay. Hey. What is the difference between wish and desire? Wish is used to express a want. When you want something that is different from the present situation. So we often use it with I wish I were, or I wish I could. Something we want, or an ability we want, but that we do not have now. Something for the future. So I wish I could speak 7 languages, or I wish I had $1 million, or I wish I were taking more time off every week, for example. Something that is different from the present condition, the present situation, we use wish. Or I wish you would call me, for example. I wish you would, or I wish you could, to express something that is not happening now. Desire, on the other hand, desire tends to be used more formally, and it also can carry more romantic nuances. It's not used as much conversationally as the word wish is. Wish is used to express wants, things that we want that are not true now. Desire is used more in romantic situations, like to desire another person, or he desired more of her time, for example, but it sounds unnecessarily formal, I feel. You might use it in a more formal, like a business context, like our client desires more information about the situation. That could be a different use of the word desire, but in general, it sounds a bit more formal and a bit more romantically charged at times, depending on the situation when it's used. If you're talking about a person as well, like if you say, for example, I desire you, it sounds actually quite odd, at least in American English. If you want to use the word desire, I think in romantic situations, it might be applied in a phrase like, he was filled with desire, or she was filled with desire, used more as a noun than as a verb. So I would recommend not using desire so much to talk about your wants, as it can sound a little bit too formal or can give perhaps the wrong nuance to the situation. But wish is used to express a hope for something or wanting something that is different from the present situation. So I hope that helps. First question comes from Faris Ghazali. How do I stop translating the meaning of English words in my head? I can tell you about the things that have helped me, and maybe they'll help you. I put myself in situations where I could not escape into my native language. In my case, I could not escape into English. I would go out like for food and drinks with friends who could not speak English. I had no choice but to use a different language with them. 2, something that I've noticed some of my students do that actually kind of bothers me. They bring a dictionary to their lesson and they'll stop conversations in lessons to check words in their dictionary and say a single word at a time instead of just trying to find a different way to explain that. 1, it totally stops the flow of conversation. 2, you don't have really the option to do that in a conversation. Most of the time you're not going to be carrying around your dictionary with you, I hope, unless it's in your phone, I suppose. 3rd, I think that this is a chance to develop a better skill. Instead of trying to translate into English or to translate into a different language, you should think about finding a different way to explain the word you want to use. Let's say, for example, that you want to use the word beautiful, but you can't remember the word. how would you explain that? So think about other ways to communicate an idea, even if you don't have the vocabulary word. So going to your dictionary shouldn't necessarily be the first course of action. It shouldn't necessarily be your first step. Think about a different way to communicate the idea you're trying to communicate. Think of examples to explain the word you're looking for, and then the other person can teach you. Like if you're working with somebody or you're talking with somebody who understands you're not a native speaker, chances are if you can explain the word you're looking for, they will tell you. They will be your teacher. I just explain like with body language sometimes too if I don't know a word. So another thing that really helped me was not just studying vocabulary words, but actually approaching things as phrases. So not saying, okay, this word equals this word in my language, but rather here's a phrase that communicates a meaning that is interesting to me or that I hear my friends use a lot. I'm going to use that phrase. So don't just input, input, input. Start outputting too. So hope that's helpful for you. Next question from Han Yon Hee. Han Yon Hee? Very sorry. Hey Alicia, what's the difference between maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly? Great question. Maybe, probably, perhaps, possibly. Okay, maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. These are all adverbs. They have the same grammatical function. Maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. Maybe and perhaps are very closely related. Maybe and perhaps they have the same meaning, but just different levels of formality. Maybe is like the lower level, the more casual version of the word perhaps. So maybe I'll go to the beach this weekend, and perhaps I'll go to the beach this weekend. They have really the same meaning, but perhaps sounds more formal. Probably, however, is different. Probably expresses a higher level of possibility than the other words on this list. I'll probably go to the beach this weekend is like a 75 to 80% chance the speaker is going to go to the beach this weekend. Possibly, however, possibly has more of a nuance of just that something can be done. It is possible to do something. We use possibly more in requests. Like, could you possibly blah, blah, blah for me? Could you possibly send me this file? Possibly sounds a little too formal for casual conversations and invitations. But if you're using it at work, for example, could you possibly meet me later this week? Instead of could you maybe meet me? So the difference between maybe and possibly and perhaps there, possible has that root, yeah? Possible, able to. So maybe and perhaps don't have that nuance. Possibly sounds like, is it possible? Are you able to do this thing? Maybe and perhaps don't contain that nuance. So to recap, maybe and perhaps are used to express the same thing, a chance of something happening. Perhaps is more formal. Possibly is used in a similar way, however, it refers more to simple possibility than are you able to do that thing. Probably expresses a high chance of something. Next question is from Huang Jiang-ik. Hi, Huang Jiang-ik says, I'm curious, what do you do on your days off? You want to know how to do my days off? On my days, I'm pretty normal. On my days off, I cook, I go jogging, I sleep, I go listen to my favorite DJs, I see my friends, I eat and drink and watch TV. That's about it. I'm a pretty normal person. First question. This comes from Shunichi Saito. Hi, Shunichi. Shunichi says, I want to know, what does though mean? For example, it's very expensive though. I see the word though at the end of a sentence very often. Yeah, a lot of you have sent this question in recently. So I talked in a previous episode of Ask Alicia about using the word though, Though, at the end of a sentence. It means but at the end of a sentence, and we use it kind of casually. So when you see the word though, Tho, it's like an even more casual version of though, Though, at the end of a sentence. So you'll see this a lot on like social media. You'll see this when you're on like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Text messages maybe. Though just means but at the end of a sentence. So in your example sentence, which was, it's really expensive though, it means it's really expensive, but. However, it's like just putting that little but, that little disagreement kind of feeling at the end of the sentence. So it's sort of like a soft, disagreement or a soft sort of difference of opinion.
Though means though, T-H-O means though, T-H-O-U-G-H. But it's just extremely, extremely casual. So for a little bit more detail, you can check this video where I talked a little bit more about T-H-O-U-G-H at the end of a sentence with some other examples. So I hope that that helps you. I know many of you have asked that question lately. Next question. The next person asked 2 questions. So the next 2 questions are from Esa Warsiadi. Warsiadi. I'm very sorry. Question 1 from Esa. Can you explain through, thorough, though, and thought? They sound similar. Yes, indeed, they do sound similar, and they even look similar in writing for sure. However, these words have different meanings and different functions in speech and in writing. Let's look at through to begin with, though. Through means to pass into something and to come out the other side of something. So for example, to go through a tunnel, or if you're looking at a document, for example, to go through a document means to read through, read all of the content of the document from beginning to end. So through something is to begin at something and pass through all of the content, to pass through everything and come out the other side, or to complete something. So we also use the word through to mean finished in American English, like are you through with dinner, or I'm through with my homework. So through, those are a couple of different ways we use the word through. The second word, thorough, so different from through. Thorough means comprehensive. Thorough means completely. Thorough means well done. It has typically a positive meaning. So for example, she was very thorough in her explanation of the word through, or she was very thorough in her explanation of the word thorough. Sorry. She was very thorough in her presentation, meaning she gave a lot of information in her presentation. Thorough means well done, containing a lot of knowledge, a lot of information in something. Thorough. So please be thorough in completing your homework, or he wasn't very thorough in cleaning his room. So thorough means well done, completely done, finished. So considering everything, considering all points of something, even the small details, is considered thorough. So we can use thorough for presentations, for activities that require small details, a thorough safety check, for example. So these are actions that are done completely, fully, to the small details. So that's thorough. Next word here is though. Though, you can think of though in the same way you think of the word but. So it's used to contrast information. It's used to express a difference in something. So you could follow someone's opinion with an expression like though. So for example, I think summer is the best season, though winter is pretty fun too. So you can think of though in the same way as you think of but. A, though, B. So you're presenting A and then a contrasting opinion B, and you're connecting those two ideas with though in the same way you would but. So though, although is similar. We use although and but in similar ways. What's the difference? But is much more casual, and but is used much more in casual conversation, in everyday conversation. If you're writing a document, a formal document, or if you're making a formal statement, you could use though in place of but. So though shows contrasting information. The last one on this list is thought. Thought is the past tense of think when used as a verb. So I thought you were coming today, or I thought it was going to rain later, or I thought this was such a great afternoon. Thought is used as the past tense of think. We can also use thought to refer to an idea as a noun. So I had a thought, for example, or do you have any thoughts about this project? So we can use thought as a verb, past tense of think, or as a noun to refer to an idea. So again, that's through, thorough, though, and thought. Some of you might be wondering, how do I remember which is which when I'm reading or when I'm listening? You have to pay attention to the grammar of the sentence. They all have different grammatical functions. So you need to think about the grammar surrounding the word. Next question from Han Yon Hee. Han Yon Hee? Very sorry. Hey Alicia, what's the difference between maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly? Great question. Maybe, probably, perhaps, possibly. Okay, maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. These are all adverbs. They have the same grammatical function. Maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. Maybe and perhaps are very closely related. Maybe and perhaps they have the same meaning, but just different levels of formality.
Maybe is like the lower level, the more casual version of the word perhaps. So maybe I'll go to the beach this weekend, and perhaps I'll go to the beach this weekend. They have really the same meaning, but perhaps sounds more formal. Probably, however, is different. Probably expresses a higher level of possibility than the other words on this list. I'll probably go to the beach this weekend is like a 75 to 80% chance the speaker is going to go to the beach this weekend. Possibly, however, possibly has more of a nuance of just that something can be done. It is possible to do something. We use possibly more in requests. Like, could you possibly blah 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 for me? Could you possibly send me this file? Possibly sounds a little too formal for casual conversations and invitations. But if you're using it at work, for example, could you possibly meet me later this week? Instead of could you maybe meet me? So the difference between maybe and possibly and perhaps there, possible has that root, yeah? Possible, able to. So maybe and perhaps don't have that nuance. Possibly sounds like, is it possible? Are you able to do this thing? Maybe and perhaps don't contain that nuance. So to recap, maybe and perhaps are used to express the same thing, a chance of something happening. Perhaps is more formal. Possibly is used in a similar way, however, it refers more to simple possibility than are you able to do that thing. Probably expresses a high chance of something.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Next question. Next question is from Muhammad Sohail. What is the difference between famous and popular? Great question. Famous is something that is well known. Many people know about that thing or that person. Beyonce is famous. The Statue of Liberty is famous. The Eiffel Tower is famous. Popular, however, means many people know about it and it is liked. It has a positive image. So like Beyonce is popular. Or like a famous candy is popular, like chocolate cake is popular. It's a famous food and many people like it. So popular is famous plus like a positive image. Sometimes we can use those two words for the same thing. So Beyonce is famous, Beyonce is popular. But famous doesn't always mean they are popular. So someone can be famous for a bad thing. In that case though, it's typically better to use the word infamous. Infamous. Infamous means famous for a bad reason. So famous for something negative. On to question 2 from Issa. What does love to hate mean and when can I use it? Love to hate means it's something that you really, really dislike, but it's sort of enjoyable to dislike. So for example, this is an expression we can apply to reality TV. So many people think reality TV is not very good entertainment or it's not very high quality entertainment. However, it's really, really fun to watch. So maybe, for example, you just hate a character on a reality TV show, but somehow you enjoy watching that TV show too. So something that you feel very strong dislike for and yet you really enjoy it at the same time. That's something you can love to hate. You love to hate that thing. Next question. Next question comes from, you wrote the pronunciation of your name. Very nice. Aitan? Aitan, I think. Okay. Hey, Alicia, I hope you're well. My level is intermediate. They feel that they're stuck at the intermediate level and want to reach the advanced level. They're watching lots of videos on YouTube, reading academic articles on the web, but still feel that progress has somehow stopped. Could you give me some advice? Okay, you say in your message that you feel your progress somehow has stopped. I have been here too, the intermediate plateau. Like you begin learning a language and it's like, yeah, I'm learning all these things. And then you kind of like plateau. You get to a level where things don't continue and you feel like progress goes much more slowly. I would say in this case, first identify how you feel your progress has stopped. By that I mean, like, do you feel like your vocabulary is lacking? Or do you find that it's hard to listen to people and to understand what they're saying? Do you find it's hard to write? Is it hard to read things? So First, identify what is that thing that you feel like you're not good at, and then start to approach your further studies with that as the focus. I think that if you can think about your different skill sets, your different levels in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, you can identify which of those 4 things is weakest for you and start there. So when you feel your progress has stopped, think like, okay, what am I not good at doing? And then focus your time there. So maybe that's a helpful first step for you. Hope that helps.
This week's first question is a question from Bahar. I'm very sorry. Hi, Alicia. I'd like to learn about as and like. What's the difference between them? To begin with, like is a preposition. Remember, prepositions are words we use to show relationships to other words or to position the elements in a sentence. So, for example, at and by and on are also prepositions. The word like is a preposition. However, the word as is a conjunction. A conjunction is a word that connects elements in a sentence. So, for example, and, but, or, for, so. These words are conjunctions. That's point 1. We use like and as to make comparisons. The general agreement on how to use like and as at this point in time is that if you are following the word like with a simple statement, like a noun phrase, you should use the word like. If, however, the part that comes after the word like or as has a verb in the clause, there's a verb in that part of the sentence, you should use as to do that, because as functions as a conjunction. Remember, it's connecting the elements in a sentence. So we should use like if there's just a simple phrase or like a simple noun phrase, something like that, after like or as. So to give some examples, my coworker eats like a pig. In that case, I've used the word like because after like comes a pig. It's just a simple noun phrase. If, however, I said my coworker eats as if he were a pig, I'm using a verb. I'm using the verb were, as if he were. So we can use as in cases where we follow the statement with a verb. We can use like in cases where we follow that statement with a simple noun phrase. Generally, we use them both to make comparisons. I'll say, though, that native speakers often make mistakes with this. Generally speaking, though, especially in spoken conversation and casual spoken conversation, at least American English speakers tend to use like more often than as in everyday conversation. I tend to use like. I rely on like heavily for my comparisons in everyday situations. It's like you were, it's like he was, it's like blah blah blah. As, I feel, is more common, at least among American English speakers, in writing. So you might see as if and as though. Both of those we can use to make comparisons. Like comes before a simple noun phrase. As is used before something containing a verb. Yeah, thanks for that question, Bahar.
Next question. Next question comes from Kiara. Kiara asks, I'll help you studying and I'll help you to study. What is the correct one? Thanks. I'll help you something. I'll help you do this. So just the regular plain form of the verb, I would suggest, is probably the most natural choice. Thanks for the question, though. Next question. Next question comes from Sheriff Ahmed? Okay. Should I use the singular or plural verb after colloquial names? For example, my team have won the match or has won the match. Okay. In this case, my team has won the match. My team has won the match. So use the singular form of the verb, like same as like he has or she has. My team has is the correct answer here.
Next question. The next question is from Taylor. Taylor asks, which one sounds better? I read a newspaper every morning or I read the newspaper every morning? Nice question. This is a question about articles. This is just about being specific. If, for example, there's a specific newspaper that you want to read, like I read the ABC newspaper every morning, you should use the. If it's not important to you to be specific about a newspaper, and if you want to imply that you just read any newspaper every morning, you can use a newspaper. I read a newspaper every morning. Using the instead, though, shows that there's maybe a specific newspaper. Using the before newspaper in this case, though, sounds like there's a specific newspaper you read every morning. If you say, I read a newspaper every morning, it sounds like you just choose any newspaper that's available to you on that day, and you read that newspaper. So using the shows that there's a specific, or it implies that there's a specific newspaper you read every day. You don't have to be specific about which one. You can, like, I read the New York Times every day, or I read the Guardian every day, for example. But if you say I read a newspaper every day, it sounds like you don't choose the same newspaper each day. That's the difference between these two phrases. Most people, however, do choose the same newspaper every day, and so they use I read the newspaper every day. You can say I read the news every day as well. But using that set phrase, the news, it's like the news for the day. I read that day's news every day, or I read the previous day's news every day. So usually we say the news. We don't use a news. It sounds a little strange to use a news. So the same sort of thing applies to a newspaper. Most people choose the same newspaper every day, so we say the newspaper instead of a newspaper. But thanks for that question, Taylor. Nice.
Next question. Next question comes from Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. Jeffrey asks, sometimes I watch movies and some characters say, you wish, with a very angry attitude, or I wish in other situations. What do these two sentences mean, and how do I use it? Aha, interesting question. Okay, when someone responds with you wish to a negative suggestion, it's like they're mutually together, they're recognizing that they don't like each other. So usually the first character will say something like, make a negative suggestion, like you should leave town and get a different job, like leave us alone, something like that. And then the other character will say, yeah, you wish, like, yes, this character recognizes you want me to do that, yes, but I'm not going to do that, in other words. So it's sort of like a challenge. So this person says like this negative suggestion, the other person recognizes this suggestion, says, no, I'm not going to do that, but I know you want me to do that. So you wish in this way means it's like a negative challenge. They're kind of fighting, recognizing they dislike each other. So that's one. The other one, what was the other one? So I wish, we talked about I wish in the previous episode of Ask Alicia, so please check that out. But essentially, I wish refers to something that we cannot do now, or something that is different from the present situation, but we want to happen, or we want to be able to do. So please check the last episode of Ask Alicia for more about I wish, like the positive meaning.
Next question comes from Brian. I'm very sorry. Hey Alicia, what's your height? I am 1,000 centimeters tall. Or maybe I'm 6 centimeters tall, and this whole thing has just been a scam the entire time.
Next question comes from Bowie Dente. Very sorry. Bowie Dente asks, when can I use ever in a present perfect sentence? Like, I have ever. Ever means at any time or at all times. You can use ever when you're asking a question, like, have you ever, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever been to France? Have you ever eaten ramen? Have you ever taken a trip to the mountains, for example? We can use ever when making questions. That's one. But because ever means at all time or at any times, we may not use it to answer a question like that. Have you ever, blah, blah, blah. We usually say yes or no in response to that. We can say I have never ever taken a trip to France, or I have never ever forgotten my keys, for example. I have never ever, blah, blah, blah. But in that case, it still means never. An expression like never ever just emphasizes the word never. So to use ever, we need to pair ever with a verb in a sentence. So we can't say I have ever, just I have plus a verb. We cannot say I have ever. That's incorrect. I have at any time or at all times. It's redundant. It's not necessary. We can, however, use ever in a negative expression, like I haven't ever been to France, or she hasn't ever eaten cheese, for example. So we have to pair ever with a negative to make a response. We use ever for present perfect tense questions, and paired with a negative, have or has, to make a response, to make a negative response. So please keep those two in mind. First question from Harley Passos. Harley I'm very sorry. Harley asks, what is the use of get plus adverb or preposition
For example, I get down. This is a question about phrasal verbs with get. We can use a lot of different things after the word get. In your example, to get down, we use it when dancing, for example, like I want to get down this weekend. It's sort of an old-fashioned expression though, to get down. We can use a lot of different words after the verb get though. For example, get into. To get into something means to become interested in something. You might hear to get at, like get at me or get at your professor. To get at means to reach out to or to communicate with, but it's a very casual expression. You can say get after, like I need to get after my homework, for example. It means to like chase after or try to do something. Also, to get in, like to get into a club, to get into a restaurant, to get into a party. The nuance is that something is challenging, but you can gain access to that thing. Like I got into the party last night, but I wasn't on the list. There are a lot of different uses of the word get. I can't talk about all of them in this video because there are so many. So if you're curious about the various phrasal verbs that we can use with the word get, check out a dictionary. That's a really good place to start. Next question comes from Alexander. Hi, Alexander. Alexander says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between the words intelligent, smart, and clever? Intelligent and smart have the same meaning. They mean someone who has a lot of knowledge, and the image is that they got it from like books, from studying, from classrooms, from lectures. Intelligent and smart, they have that same feeling about them, but intelligent sounds more formal. Smart is used a lot among young people who have good academic abilities, for example. Clever also means that someone has a lot of knowledge, but the idea with clever, maybe they have knowledge from books and classes, yes, but their knowledge is from world experience. So they're really good with like people and situations, and they can think quickly maybe, and they have good ideas. That's someone who is clever. Sometimes clever has the image of being a little bit like sneaky too.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Next question. Next question comes from Long Ann. Long Ann asks, what is the difference between simple past tense and past continuous tense or past progressive tense? Simple past tense we use for actions that started and ended in the past. So the beginning of the action and the end of the action happened in the past. So for example, the sentence, I ate breakfast is a simple past tense statement. I ate breakfast. Ate is the simple past tense. The past continuous tense, however, or the past progressive tense, is something we use to talk about an action that was continuing at a specific point in time in the past. If I want to use the past progressive tense, I can say, I was eating breakfast. Using that continuous tense, using that progressive tense implies I want to explain something else that happened at that time, or maybe I want to add some more information. So for example, I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock this morning, or I was eating breakfast when the phone rang, or I was eating breakfast and watching TV at the same time. I was eating breakfast while studying today. By using the past progressive, I'm explaining that an action was continuing at a specific point in time, as in the example, I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, or I can use past progressive to show one action was happening at the same time as another action in the past. If I use just the simple past tense, I'm just saying a simple fact, in other words. This action happened. I ate breakfast at 8 o'clock. If I want to emphasize the continuous nature of the action for some reason, like I was eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, I can use the past progressive tense. In that case, it might be in response to a question like, what were you doing at 8 o'clock this morning? So if someone wants to ask maybe what you were doing at a specific point in time, like someone is suspicious of you, like, what were you doing last night? You can say like, oh, I was having dinner with my friends last night. But past tense, simple past tense is something we use for actions which start and finish in the past. But the progressive tense in past can be used to emphasize the continuing nature of that situation or that action. First question this week comes from Eduardo. Hi, Eduardo. Could you explain, please, how to use the expressions 1, at all, 2, kind of, 3, actually,
for a big picture? Sure. Number 1, at all. We use at all as an emphasis phrase after negative statements. I don't want to study at all today. He doesn't like me at all. We can also use this expression in question. Question 2, about kind of. It depends on which expression you mean. There's kind of, which can mean a little bit or somewhat. I kind of want to eat Vietnamese food for dinner. You'll also notice that the pronunciation there changes to kinda. Not kind of, but kinda. Depending on the way the sentence is made, though, kind of can also refer to types of something. What kind of ice cream do you like? They don't know what kind of house they want. Here, kind of means type. So they don't know what kind of house they want. They don't know what kind of food they want to eat for dinner, for example. So check to see which way kind of is being used. If it's coming before a verb, like I kind of want to eat or I kind of want to go, then it probably means a little bit. But if it's coming before a noun, then it probably means type of noun. So I hope that helps. Third question about the word actually. Actually, right. We use the word actually when we want to explain the real situation as we understand it. So people like to use actually to introduce their opinion as though it's fact sometimes. So some examples of this. Actually, I don't live in the United States. I don't think he actually likes chocolate. So in these ways, we're introducing a real situation as we understand it. We use actually to do that. Your fourth question is about big picture. Big picture is used to talk about a broad idea of something. So going away from a small detail and talking about like the entire situation at one time. I know you think studying vocabulary is boring, but look at the big picture. It's important to know small details. He's losing sight of the big picture. He's wasting time and money. So the big picture is kind of like maybe the bigger situation. Hope that helps. Next question comes from Yasin. Yasin? I'm very sorry. What's the difference between on time and in time? Is it you arrived just on time or you arrived just in time? We use on time to refer to doing something at the correct time, doing something at a scheduled time. So for example, I need to get to work on time, meaning at the correct time. Or did you make it to your appointment on time? In time, however, is used when we want to kind of give a nuance of rushing or hurrying for something. I need to leave my house now to get to the airport in time for my flight. I need to study for my test now if I want to be in time for the party later. You should probably leave now if you want to be in time for the movie. In time for something else. So I want to do action A to make my schedule meet this other condition, this other thing I would like to do, or this other thing I need to do. In time for has the nuance of a deadline. We can use this expression in like a panic, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it in time, like to submit a paper. I'm not going to make it in time. In time means like before the deadline, whereas on time has the meaning of completing an action or completing something at a scheduled time. Next question is from Wanfang Chen. Hi Wanfang. Hey Alicia, what does you just made my day mean? I heard this phrase, but I don't fully understand it. Yeah, so you made my day is a really positive phrase. You can imagine this as you just made my day much better, but we don't say much better. So we use this when someone gives us good news. We can say, you just made my day, or you made my day. Just sounds like something happened very recently. You just made my day. A raise? You just made my day. We get to take the afternoon off? You just made my day. Those are situations where someone is really happy and wants to express that the other person improved their day in that moment. Nice expression. Next question comes from Gerson Silva. Hi. What is the difference between shade and shadow? Oh, great. This is a great question. Both of these words can be used to refer to a place that is darker than its surroundings because there's an object that is blocking the light. We can say there's shade over there or there's a shadow over there. In that sentence, they are used the same. However, shadow refers to the dark shape only. So a person can cast a shadow. We use cast, the verb cast, with a shadow. I cast a shadow when I stand in the sun, for example. Shade, however, as a noun, refers to or has the nuance of a kind of shelter. So shelter provided by some other object
shelter from the light, shelter from the sun. So we would say stand in the shade, because shade has the nuance of shelter. We would not say stand in the shadow. Shadow does not carry the nuance of shelter in the way that shade does. Interestingly enough though, shade and shadow are both used as verbs as well. To shadow something means to follow something closely. To shadow someone at work means to follow someone at work and try to understand their job, for example. Shade is used as a verb to mean to create shelter from light. For example, the canopy shaded us from the sun. Shade also has some interesting uses. You might hear the slang phrase to throw shade. Throwing shade is a really interesting slang expression that we use, which means to communicate disrespect or to communicate like contempt. Bad feelings for something. When you're speaking generally, in most cases, when you want to talk about a dark, cool area, we should say shade. Stand in the shade. When you want to talk only about the dark area, that dark object, use shadow.
Next question comes from Kelso Moreno. You wrote your name in all caps. Back to back. What does it mean? Sometimes I hear it in baseball games. Do you know? Yes, I do know. The expression back to back means one thing after another. So we have two things, sometimes more, back to back to back. You can put that in a line. It means in baseball, for example, like one home run after another, we could say 2 home runs back to back. 2 or more things happening quickly in succession. It's used a lot in sports.
Next question, actually 2 questions from Danny. Hi Danny. Danny's first question is, you talked about lit as slang. Yes, I talked about lit in episode 2. Episode 1, episode 2 of Ask Alicia. Can you please talk about the verb light and using it in active and passive? Sure. Light means to start a fire. So to light a fire, to light a candle. Some examples of active and passive voice with this verb then. Why don't we light some candles for dinner tonight? All the candles in the restaurant were lit. On our camping trip, my neighbors lit a fire and we brought hamburgers to make. A fire was lit in the campsite while we were gone. I was going to light a fire, but I fell asleep. So to light means to start a fire. He lit the house on fire. We can say to light blah 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 on fire. So there are a few different examples of using the verb light in active and in passive, past tense, future tense as well. So I hope that that's helpful. Danny's second question, can you talk about ride and its uses? Like take someone for a ride. Can I take a ride? Ride is another verb that has a lot of different uses. You use the example, to take someone for a ride means to drive together with someone. To go for a ride has the nuance of doing something just for fun. It's just for fun. I want to take a ride to a location. I want to take a ride to the mountains this weekend or take a ride to the beach. But to take someone for a ride means to invite someone to drive somewhere with you in a car. That's one way to use ride. You can also say, give me a ride. Can you give me a ride? So this is a request expression. I don't have a car. My friend has a car. I want my friend to take me in their car to a location. I can say, can you give me a ride to the movie theater? Can you give me a ride to the lake? Give me a ride is a request. So give me a ride in your car. So there are a lot of uses of ride. If you want to see all of them, or if you want to see more of them, I recommend checking a dictionary. There are quite a few, and I can't talk about them all in this video. So please check a dictionary.
Next question is from Anderson Souza. Anderson Souza. Hi, Anderson. Anderson asks, hi, Alicia. How are you doing? I'm reading Harry Potter, and I just saw the sentence, good night, Harry. How do you pronounce good night? Yeah, good night. We sometimes say good night. Good night. So that ud in good is dropped. We remove that ud sound and we say good night, good night. So good night, that's how you say it. Hope that helped.
Next question. Okay, next question is from Fem. What does you're too good to be true mean? Is it good or not? Maybe you've heard this in a famous song. You're too good to be true, can't take my eyes off of you. In that case, it's a good meaning. A different way to say this expression is, you are so good, you are so amazing that I can't believe you're real. So in other words, something must be wrong. There must be some problem with you. It's not possible for you to be real because you are so good, you are so great. So you're too good to be true. It's like, wow, I'm amazed by you. So it's a good expression. If, however, maybe in a more
uncommon situation. Someone said like, this guy's too good to be true. Like maybe reviewing a job application, for example. This girl, she's too good to be true. Like if it's said in that way, maybe there's something suspicious about that person. This doesn't seem right. There's just too much good information here. There must be some problem with this person. Depending on the intonation, it can portray either a very positive meaning or a very suspicious meaning. In most cases, however, it's a positive meaning. So if you heard this in a song, for example, it's probably a very positive, kind of romantically nuanced phrase. Thanks very much for that question, Fem. Nice one. Next question is from Oz Rocha Jr. Sorry, I hope I said that right. Alicia, how do we separate words in a text when we get to the end of the line? Your text formatting software should do that for you. Do you use Word? Word should do that for you. If you use just text or notepads, there should be a word wrap function. I don't know. Google it if that doesn't help you. Your second question though, what is the difference in pronunciation between life and live or live? For example, my life is good, and 2, I live in a big city. Right. So life and the word that's spelled L-I-V-E, as in your example, I live in a big city, have different pronunciations. The vowel pronunciation of the I sound is different. In life, it's a very open sound. Lie, like life, life. In the second word, live, the I sound is kind of tall, li, li. It's very like kind of in your nose, live. That's the first sound that's a bit different. So lie, li, li. That's the I sound that's different. But then the consonant sound is also different. The F in life, so there's just air coming out of my mouth. I'm not making any sound with my vocal cords there, just life, life. With the word live, however, I'm making a v, v sound. So v, v. That's the difference. V, v. So I have to use my vocal cord v to make the v sound. So life, no vocal cords. Live, vocal cords used. However, do be careful. Live, L-I-V-E, can also be pronounced live. So that V sound I talked about, where you use your vocal cords, plus that open I sound, live. So like a live performance, for example. So you need to pay attention to the grammar of the sentence to understand if it's live or live as well. So life and live have very different pronunciations. Good one, nice catch. I hope you can practice those.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Next question. Rabia Arshad. Rabia Arshad. Rabia Arshad. I'm very sorry. What's the difference between can and may? I saw this on the Dining Like a Champ cheat sheet and noticed these words were used for requests. What's the difference? Can and may for requests in modern English, in modern American English, are used the same. If I use them in a statement, can refers to ability, may refers to permission. Please just be careful. Can and may are only used in the same way to make requests in modern American English. Next question is from Harley. Hi Harley, hello again. What is the correct use? It's I have breakfast, I have lunch, I have dinner, or I breakfast, I lunch, I dinner, I dine. Ah, nice question, Harley. I use the I have lunch, I have dinner, I have breakfast version. If you drop have, you sound very posh. Posh means like fashionable, sophisticated, a bit rich as well. So I'm not any of those things, but saying I breakfast, I lunch, I dinner, it sounds like you have a very high opinion of that activity. In most cases, at least in my life, I don't have a reason to speak like that, so I always say I have breakfast, or I have lunch, or I have dinner. It's not incorrect to say I breakfast, I lunch, I dine, but it sounds a bit unnatural in most everyday life situations. You don't really need to talk with that level of formality, I don't think.
Next question. Next question is from Faris Ghazali. I'm very sorry. Faris asks, hey Alicia, can we use hasn't in an essay. Hasn't, the contracted form of has not. You can, it's physically possible for you to use hasn't in an essay, sure. But if you use contractions in your writing, it makes you, in my opinion, it makes you sound a bit less formal. If you use the expanded form, the non-contracted version, you're going to sound a bit more formal, a bit more polished, I feel. This does not only apply to the word has not and hasn't, therefore. This applies to all contractions, really. The answer is yes, you can, but I don't necessarily recommend it if you want to sound formal and polished. Thanks for that question, though, Ferris. Next question. What does the word lit mean? What does the word lit mean? Lit is actually a slang word. It's common slang among young people, especially in the US right now. Maybe many of you know that the verb to light has the past tense lit. Lit is used to talk about, for example, a party or some kind of social gathering, usually, that's really exciting or that's really, really fun or that's kind of crazy. So lit, using the past tense there, you can kind of imagine that like a fire, when you light a fire, it gets bigger and it gets kind of wild, a little bit crazy, like there's a spark and then it starts. So if you see the word lit, like this party was lit, it means it was really crazy, it was really good, it was really fun. You can use it if you want, but just keep in mind that really young people use that word. I don't use that word for reference, but again, I'm not cool. First question this week comes from Imon. Again, hi Imon, you send lots of questions, thanks. Which one is correct? I want rest or I want to take rest? Well, you can say I want rest to mean in general, just you would like to do nothing, to relax. Grammatically though, I want to take a rest is correct, or I want to rest. Both of those are correct. However, in American English, we don't usually say I want to take a rest. It's more common to say I want to take a break. I want to take a break, or let's take a break, or can we take a break? Something like that is more common. You can say I want to take a rest, but again, in American English, rest is less common. Next question, what is correct? I thought you were gone, or I thought you are gone. I thought you are gone. We need to use I thought you were gone here. I thought you were gone. So I thought, past tense, and you were is also past tense. It's a past tense thought, past tense situation. So please use past tense. Yeah. Next question from Gabriella. Hi, Gabriella. Hi, Alicia. What is the difference between used to and used to in fast speech? The difference in pronunciation. Yeah. Basically, when we're speaking quickly, or I suppose even not quickly, we tend to pronounce used to as used to. The grammar doesn't change, it's just the pronunciation changes because it's difficult to say used to very quickly. I used to is very difficult to say, so we just say used to instead. I used to use a smartphone. He used to play soccer. We used to cook every day. In each of these sentences, I contracted used to used to. I think actually in most cases we probably do say used to instead of used to because it's quite difficult to say. Again, this shouldn't really cause any communication problems. Used to and used to have the same meaning, just different pronunciation. Next question, also maybe about were and was. Why do we use if I were and not if I was? This is a great question, and actually a lot of native speakers make mistakes with this. It's a small point, to be fair, but if you want to be correct, you should always use if I were. This is a grammar point. It refers to the subjunctive mood. The subjunctive mood. An explanation of subjunctive is a bit beyond the scope. It's a bit much for this video. But we will always use if I were. When the subject there is I in the conditional, if I were, we always use were. You will hear native speakers say if I was, if I was. If you want to be extremely strict and extremely nitpicky, were is actually the correct one. But if you use was, if you make a mistake and you use was, you will still be understood. So, but yes, this is related to the subjunctive mood in English. Next question from Suinte, hope I said that right. Suinte says, hi Alicia, which word do you prefer using as an American?
America, the United States of America, the US, the USA, or the States. I only started using America to refer to my country when I moved to Japan because the people around me use the word America to refer to the country. But I think before that, I said the US. I used the US. People would say, where are you from? The US. Why did I use the US? Because it's short and easy to say, the US. I don't want to say the United States of America. It sounds long to me. Thanks for the question.
Want to speed up your language learning? Take your very first lesson with us. You'll start speaking in minutes and master real conversations. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Just click the link in the description.